Chapter 46-36. A strange expression flashed on her face, which had always been indifferent. She couldn't help but have a thought in her mind. Did I hear it wrong? This is my best friend whom I've told you about many times before. In fact, she was the one who prepared the materials for the foundation building elixir that I brought to the North Island last time. Ning Xuefei introduced with a smile. Little greater than or equal to said. I've known about this for a long time. She's not only your best friend, Fei, but also mine. We've been through so many letters, and we've known each other for a long time. Sheng Wanlan smiled and took Fei's hand. Yes, we're all best friends. We're a group. After saying that, the three girls immediately laughed together, and they were very intimate. That. Another girl suddenly wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. What's that? Shanghai Laner looked at her mischievously, and smiled at Ning Xuefei. They knew what the other girl wanted to say, but they just didn't say it out on purpose. That. Why hasn't he come yet? The girl asked shyly with a red face. Him. Who are you talking about? We have a lot of people here this time. If you don't tell me specifically, I don't know how to answer you. Shanghai Laner giggled. That's right. If you don't tell me specifically, how can I know who you're talking about? Ning Xuefei also teased her. In addition to studying all kinds of things, this girl was simply a natural simpleton. Usually, no one would see her blush or be shy. This opportunity was too rare. It's brother Lin Yi. The girl said with a red face. Oh, you're asking about junior brother. I don't know. He said he went to do the formalities, and I don't know when he'll finish them. As Sheng Wanlan spoke up to this point, she suddenly rolled her eyes and said to little curly coiled bear, how about this, little white, go find little junior brother and tell him that there is a cute girl here who is anxiously waiting for him. She's about to become a husband-gazing stone. Of course not, I'm not a husband-gazing stone. The three girls immediately laughed and played together. When the little curly bear heard this, he dragged his exclusive weapon and walked out the door. When he opened the door, he was shocked to see Lin Yi standing at the door like a block of wood. His eyes stared blankly into the room. His gaze involuntarily fell on the girl. It was Han Jingjing, whom he had been yearning for day and night. The women in the room didn't expect such a scene to appear, and they were all dumbfounded. All of them were a little disheveled, and they quickly turned their heads to tidy up their clothes. Big brother Lin Yi. When Han Jingjing saw Lin Yi, she was pleasantly surprised. She had been looking forward to this day for a long time. Especially after she learned that Lin Yi would lead a team to West Island this time, she was so excited that she couldn't sleep at night. She even abandoned the research on the casting mechanism that made her forget to eat and sleep. She stayed with Ning Xuefei every day, and the only thought in her mind was to see Lin Yi as soon as possible. Han Jingjing was just pleasantly surprised, but at this moment, Lin Yi was completely stunned. He was different from Han Jingjing. Han Jingjing had known that he was coming, so she had been mentally prepared, but he was not mentally prepared at all. This kind of ecstasy came so suddenly that even with his temperament, he couldn't digest it for a while. He could only stand there in a daze, looking at Han Jingjing in a daze. Jingjing is not a husband-gazing stone. But some people have become the real wife-gazing stone. Ning Xuefei covered her mouth and laughed. I say, when are you two going to look at each other affectionately? How about we clear the room first, and then we'll go out first, so that you two can have a good look. Shanghai Laner also joined in the fun. Listening to the words of the two women, Han Jingjing's pretty face suddenly became redder, even the roots of her ears were bright red. This kind of delicate and shy feeling was very attractive. Even Ning Shuefei and Shanghai Laner couldn't help but secretly envy her. Lin Yi couldn't help but secretly sigh. After more than 2 years, not only did Han Jingjing become more beautiful and charming, but even her temperament began to mature a little. There was a kind of cute charm of a little woman. Compared to the pure natural dullness of the past, her lethality to men had increased by more than several times. After coming to his senses, Lin Yi suddenly strode in front of Han Jingjing. Ignoring the surprised eyes of Ning Shuefei and Shanghai Laner, he didn't say a word and hugged her in his arms. At this moment, 1,000 words were not as good as a hug. Han Jingjing was caught off guard and let out a low cry. However, after feeling Lin Yi's temperature and heartbeat, the slight estrangement because they hadn't seen each other for more than 2 years was completely melted. Her pretty face was stuck to Lin Yi's chest, full of happiness. Ning Shuefei and Shanghai Laner's eyes lit up as they watched from the side. They had imagined many situations in which Lin Yi and Han Jingjing would meet. Every time the two wrote letters, they would discuss this matter. They even deduced the lines for the meeting countless times, but they never thought that Lin Yi would do this. Lin Yi and Han Jingjing had a tacit understanding. At this time, there was really no need to do anything, and there was no need to say any words of love. It was all superfluous. A hug was enough to make their hearts tightly stick together, and that was enough. The two hugged for a long time. Ning Shuefei and Shanghai Laner were tired. Only then did Lin Yi finally let go of Han Jingjing. He couldn't help but ask, "Jingjing, why are you here?" When I was transmitted to Heaven Stage Island, I arrived here. Then, by chance, I met Fei Fei and lived with her. Han Jingjing smiled sweetly. Oh, that's good. Lin Yi couldn't help but rejoice in his heart. Fortunately, Han Jingjing's fate was much better than Tian Chan and Sydney. Otherwise, if she really met someone bad, with her ignorant and naive personality, who knew how much suffering she would suffer. Lin Yi didn't even dare to think of that situation. The more pure and kind a person was, the more blessed they were by God. This was the so-called fortune of fools. It was also the will of God. Lin Yi looked at Han Jingjing, and then looked at Ning Shuefei and Shanghai Laner, who were standing on the side, and suddenly smiled sincerely. Of course, at this time, he wasn't thinking of dirty thoughts like the fortune of having 2 wives. Instead, he felt happy from the bottom of his heart. Because of Ning Shuefei, Han Jingjing was saved from all kinds of troubles, and because of Shanghai Laner, he could reunite with Han Jingjing after a long time. Wasn't this the will of God? Big brother Lin Yi, Jingjing knows everything about you. Han Jingjing suddenly blinked her big eyes and smiled. Ha! Lin Yi was slightly stunned. Chapter 46-37. I'm not a little spy. Shanghai Laner immediately retorted. Then what are you? Ning Shuefei squinted her eyes and asked mischievously. I just see that you two miss junior brother all the time, so I tell you something about him to satisfy your cravings. Shanghai Laner rolled her eyes and raised her head. I don't miss him all the time. Don't confuse me with Jing Jing. I just ask occasionally. Ning Shuefei suddenly blushed. Han Jingjing was Lin Yi's confidant, so it was normal for her to miss Lin Yi. But she herself only had a good impression of Lin Yi, which was far from that level. Oh. I thought you were the same as Jingjing. It turns out that you are not. Then why do you ask her every few days, Fei Fei? Shengwan Laner said with a long tone, harboring malicious intentions. I don't ask about him every few days. Don't talk nonsense. Ning Shuefei retorted with a blush. Seeing that Lin Yi next to her began to look at her in a strange way, she suddenly panicked and quickly changed the topic. Don't talk about me. Think about your own problems first, hee hee. My own problems? What problems can I have? Shanghai Laner spread her hands disapprovingly. Lawn, you're too slow. Lin Yi didn't know Jing Jing when he was in the North Island, so you could be with him every day. But now he has found a confidant in the secular world. Are you disappointed? Ning Xuefei retorted with a teasing smile. Why should I be disappointed? Shanghai Laner looked at Ning Xuefei in confusion, and then looked at Lin Yi and Han Jingjing. He was baffled by what he heard. Don't you understand? Then you can't be with Lin Yi, because he has Jing Jing. Ning Xuefei pointed at Lin Yi and Han Jingjing, who were no longer hugging each other, but still stuck together like glue. Who says I can't? It's not like little junior brother only has Jing Jing. He still has sister Xiao Tao. He also has a confidant on Middle Island, and there's more than one. Shanghai Laner was very familiar with these things. After all, Lin Yi had never hidden anything from her. Nakajima had told her about Tian Chan and Sydney. Zhongdao also has one, and more than one. Ning Xuefei looked at Lin Yi in surprise. She couldn't help but look a little strange. This was the first time she heard of this. What's wrong with that? Do you think we are all feminists like your West Island? Our North Island is dominated by male cultivators. It's normal to have 3 or 4 wives. Shangguan Laner suddenly blushed when she said this. He reacted and said, "Oh. Why am I telling you all this? Don't think too much, I'm just explaining, I'm not going to do that with little junior brother." Ha ha ha, Lawn, you're just confessing. You're so cute. Ning Xuefei was immediately amused. Her mischievous eyes moved back and forth between Shanghai Laner, Han Jingjing, and Lin Yi. Her mother often said that she was insensitive and not as meticulous as other girls, but compared with Shangguan Laner and Han Jingjing, her 2 best friends, she was not as meticulous as them. She felt that she was already very normal. Lin Yi didn't know what to say when he heard these words. He could only stand aside and smile awkwardly. Shanghai Laner's eyes subconsciously looked at Han Jingjing. Seeing that Han Jingjing also pursed her lips and smiled with them, without showing any unhappy look, she suddenly relaxed for some reason. She couldn't help muttering to herself that this feeling was really weird. After everyone laughed and played for a while, the atmosphere gradually changed from the surprise at the beginning to warmth. Needless to say, the 3 women were all good friends, and Lin Yi had a deep friendship with them. Even Ning Xuefei and he had an unforgettable experience in the far North Island, so he naturally didn't feel alienated when he got along with the 3 women. In the 2 years in West Island. Jingjing, what have you been doing? This topic couldn't be avoided. Han Jingjing could know about Lin Yi through Shanghai Laner, but Lin Yi didn't know about her. But even if he didn't know, he could probably guess that this girl must be studying something, such as making an automatic alchemy furnace. I won't tell you first. Brother Lin Yi, you and Jingjing will know it. Han Jingjing stuck out her tongue cutely and deliberately kept him guessing. Oh. Did she study out some good treasure? Seeing this, Lin Yi was stunned and immediately became interested. He immediately urged Han Jingjing to take him there. Ning Xuefei and Shanghai Laner naturally wouldn't be left behind. A group of people immediately rushed to Ning Xuefei's exclusive research room excitedly, even leaving dinner behind. As soon as he stepped into the research room, Lin Yi's eyes suddenly lit up. This was not a room, but a hall. It seemed that at least 5 or 6 rooms had been specially opened. Such a large hall could even hold an indoor 100-meter sprint competition. It was worthy of being the exclusive research room of the Princess of West Island. Looking around, there were all kinds of strange things in various shapes. Lin Yi thought that he had seen a lot, but at this moment, it was like Granny Lou entering the Grand View Garden. The room was full of things, but he couldn't recognize any of them. He couldn't help but say, "Did you make a future science and technology museum?" This was not an exaggeration at all. Han Jingjing always liked to study all kinds of things, and Ning Shuafei happened to be a kindred spirit. Otherwise, she wouldn't have such a large research room. After the two women met, they were even more out of control. Almost everything that passed through their hands would be changed beyond recognition, so there was such a scene in front of them. The room was filled with their research results, and the scope of their research was absolutely incredible. From cultivation to daily life, there was nothing missing. Although 99% of them were worthless waste, the remaining results were important inventions that could change the entire world if they were taken out. Han Jingjing was undoubtedly a genius, and Ning Shuafei, as the Princess of West Island, was extremely talented and could use any resources of West Island at any time. Such a person who was cultivated from an early age was naturally not worse than Han Jingjing. One had a typical scientific thinking in the secular world, the other had an ancient inheritance from the Heaven Stage Island, one had endless wonderful ideas, and the other had a vast and majestic knowledge. When the two of them met, they were a perfect match and complemented each other. This was a scientific research team made in heaven. Lin Yi was dizzy by the strange inventions in the room, while Shanghai Laner and Little Curly Bear seemed to have discovered a new continent, shouting and jumping excitedly. Chapter 46-38. It wasn't the first time they came here, but there weren't so many things here the last time they came, especially not so many technological products. It was only after the Central Chamber of Commerce appeared that it became popular on Heaven Step Island, but the things in front of them obviously couldn't be bought in any Central Chamber of Commerce. Every item here was a unique invention. Jing Jing, have you and Shuafei been busy with these things? After Lin Yi roughly looked around, like Shanghai Laner, he couldn't help but pick them up and carefully observe them one by one. He wanted to rely on his insight to see the specific use of these things. Of course, these were Han Jingjing and Ning Shuafei's whims. Some seemed to be clear at a glance, but in fact, the use was completely different from what they imagined. Some simply couldn't understand it all. Of course not. What you see is just the work of me and Jing Jing in our spare time. It's not our main work. Ning Shuafei winked at Han Jingjing and said, "What you're about to see is the most important research result of the past 2 years. Although it's still a semi-finished product, once it's completed, it will shake the entire Heaven Island." What the hell is it? Why are you being so mysterious? Hurry up and say it. Don't keep us in suspense. Shanghai Laner couldn't wait. In the previous correspondence, she vaguely knew that the two women seemed to be researching something, but she had never been clear. After all, she wasn't like Ning Shuafei and Han Jingjing who liked to tinker with research. In this regard, she was purely a layman. Then come with me. I promise to open your eyes. Ning Shuafei smiled mysteriously and took the lead to walk inside. This huge research room actually had an inner room, which was the core research results of her and Han Jingjing. Pretending to be mysterious. Shanghai Laner muttered, but she didn't slow down at all. She followed closely behind Ning Shuafei with the little curly bear. What the hell is it? Lin Yi was also completely intrigued. Hee, big brother Lin Yi will know when you see it. This thing may be able to help you. Han Jingjing smiled mysteriously and pulled Lin Yi's hand to walk inside. Help me. Lin Yi was stunned. When he walked into the research room, he was stunned speechless. Although this inner room was not small, it was at least half the size of the outer room. However, it was not as messy as the outer room. It looked a lot more spacious. There was only one thing in total, a huge box. What is this? It's actually made of superior dark steel. Where did you get so much superior dark steel? Shangwan Laner and little curly bear circled around the box curiously. She was a person who knew what was good and what was bad. Dark steel was a rare commodity, not to mention top-grade dark steel. This kind of good material was usually not used to forge magical weapons. Using so much top-grade dark steel to make a big metal box, he was simply an invincible prodigal. Could this be? Lin Yi looked at it thoughtfully. His attention was not on the material, but on the internal structure of the dark steel box. The various structures inside were extremely exquisite and complicated, but it looked somewhat familiar. He felt that this thing was somewhat familiar. Han Jingjing was about to introduce it, but Ning Xuefei covered her mouth and said mysteriously, "Guess. Let's see if you can guess it. This is Jing Jing's and my painstaking efforts, and it was specially made for you. If you can't guess it, then you're a heartless man. Then, we won't give it to you. We'll keep it for ourselves." Heartless man. Jing Jing has no problem saying this, but little junior brother didn't do anything to you, Fei Fei. What right do you have to say that he's a heartless man? Shangwan Lan squinted at Ning Xuefei with evil intentions. She was taking revenge for what she had done to Ning Xuefei just now. I'm saying this for Jing Jing. Ning Xuefei suddenly blushed. She stole a glance at Lin Yi and saw that he was looking at the dark steel box thoughtfully. She breathed a sigh of relief subconsciously. Han Jingjing smiled at the side without saying a word. Lin Yi looked back and forth at the internal structure of the dark steel box. He pondered for a moment and said, "Is this thing used for forging?" After all, Lin Yi had been with King of Garbage for so long, and he was a dabbler in the art of blacksmithing. His understanding of blacksmithing was far deeper than a layman's. He didn't know the structure of each part of the box, but he had a rough idea of how it looked like a foundry. After all, he'd seen these things in King of Garbage's secret base before, just that the shape was different. Forging. Shangwan Lan was stunned. She looked at the black iron box again, but she was still confused. She couldn't see what this thing had to do with forging. All the forging masters in the world needed to choose a unique forging environment, and at the same time, they needed to be equipped with all kinds of forging facilities. How could it be placed directly in a black iron box? Brother Lin Yi is so smart. This is an automatic forging mechanism. Han Jingjing admitted with a smile. Well, at least you have a good eye. Our efforts didn't go to waste. Ning Xuefei nodded and said. It really is. Lin Yi was still in disbelief after getting a clear answer. He'd never seen anything like this before, and even the King of Garbage's jaw would have dropped to the floor in shock. Han Jingjing's words especially surprised him. Wait a minute, Jingjing, you're saying that this is an automatic weapon crafting mechanism? That's right. As long as the casting formula is set up in advance and the corresponding materials are put in, someone will be watching from the side and make some minor adjustments depending on the situation. The rest is controlled by itself. It's even easier to operate than the god's pesticide cauldron. Han Jingjing giggled. Lin Yi's eyes lit up when he heard that. He suddenly thought of King of Junk's current predicament. He quickly asked, can it accurately control the fire? Of course we can. Controlling the heat is the most basic requirement. Our automatic casting mechanism can even accurately control a series of environmental factors such as air pressure, humidity, and so on. Only by doing this can we ensure that the casting process is foolproof. What do you think? Aren't we awesome? Ning Xuefei proudly raised her head. That's great. That's great. This problem can finally be solved. Lin Yi was surprised and delighted. Chapter 4639. No matter how experienced a blacksmith was, there would always be errors in the control of the fire. Many weapons would have flaws because of this, and some would even give up halfway. However, the automatic casting mechanism was different. As long as the casting formula was set correctly, there was almost no possibility of it going wrong in this aspect. It just happened to make up for the King of Junk's shortcomings in this aspect. He would definitely be ecstatic when he knew about this. Brother Lin Yi, don't be too happy just yet. Our automatic casting mechanism is not truly completed yet. In fact, it is only a semi-finished product. Han Jingjing poured cold water on him helplessly. Ha! Semi-finished product? Lin Yi's expression suddenly froze. Was it too early for him to be happy? Yes, although the general structure is almost complete, there are still some technical problems that have not been solved. Now, we are waiting for the electronic components of the Central Chamber of Commerce. Han Jingjing nodded. Pfft. Lin Yi almost choked when he heard that. He could not help but said in surprise, cough cough, this thing needs electronic components. Yes, otherwise, how could it be intelligent? This kind of intelligent chip component is relatively difficult to obtain. It is impossible to get it on Heavenly Island. Fortunately, the Central Chamber of Commerce suddenly appeared, just in time to provide charcoal in the snow, hee hee. Han Jingjing laughed. The Central Chamber of Commerce even sells this kind of specialized chip component. Lin Yi could not help but be surprised again. It was fine that the Central Chamber of Commerce set off a wave of technological products on Heavenly Island, but he did not expect that they would even sell intelligent chip components. Were they planning to complete industrialization on Heavenly Island? Yes, but those intelligent chip components are too eye-catching. We dare not rashly place an order, afraid that it will attract attention. This kind of thing is actually very sensitive. It may leak the secret of our automatic casting mechanism, so we have to be careful. Ning Xuefei nodded. Then what about you guys? Laner asked curiously. Hee, I asked Fei Fei to order some digital equipment from them. Although they are all high-end goods, they are all consumer goods that can be enjoyed. No one will suspect anything even if I buy a lot of them. The transistors and various electronic devices can be disassembled and used, and the chip components can also be pieced together. I believe it won't be a big problem. Han Jingjing smiled confidently. Her confidence in this aspect was really unparalleled. It's a pity that the Central Chamber of Commerce is too slow. We've reserved it for so long, but the digital equipment still hasn't been delivered to us. It's taking so long. I'll get someone to hurry them up later, Ning Xuefei said with a pout. Oh, could it be that they are deliberately refusing to sell? Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. That's not true. Their Central Chamber of Commerce has to rely on my mother to do business here. How could they have the guts to not sell on purpose? Ning Xuefei stuck out her tongue. This place was different from the North Island. Although the North Island was controlled by the 3 pavilions, the environment was relatively relaxed. Any Chamber of Commerce could enter as long as it had the strength. But it was not possible in the West Island. Women's rights dominated here, and the overall atmosphere was very united and exclusive. To do business here, one had to obey the Ning family. If the Ning family was unhappy, no matter how powerful the Chamber of Commerce was, it would not be able to survive here. Why is that? Lin Yi asked curiously. The main reason is that the digital equipment that Jingjing ordered are not common goods. Even in the secular world, only a few places sell them, so they don't have any stock in hand. They can only reserve them first and see when they can deliver them. This is also the privilege of Fei Fei. If it were others, they wouldn't be able to reserve them, Han Jingjing said with a smile. I see. Lin Yi suddenly understood. With the Central Chamber of Commerce's current momentum, even if ordinary people had a lot of spirit jades, they could only buy whatever they had. Only privileged people like Ning Xuefei could make this special request. After all, the Central Chamber of Commerce wanted to survive in the West Island. As long as the things were not too difficult to get, they would definitely satisfy them. At most, it would be a little troublesome for them to purchase the goods separately. After a pause, Lin Yi suddenly said, "By the way, Jingjing, don't you feel that the Central Chamber of Commerce is unfathomable? I wrote a letter to Lingshan and the others in the secular world before, and they even replied, through this Central Chamber of Commerce. Yes, they can connect to the secular world, and they are indeed very powerful." So after settling this automatic casting mechanism, Jingjing decided to research this next. It's just that there is a lack of information right now, and I can't find any clues in a short period of time. But since the scientists in the center can achieve it, Jingjing won't be any worse than them. Han Jingjing clenched her fists excitedly. If there was anything in the world that could make her so excited, it would probably be an unsolvable problem like this. Ugh, Jingjing, you're too amazing. You even want to research this. Lin Yi slapped his forehead and couldn't help but feel a little dizzy. When he himself encountered something like this, he would only think of asking Zhang Liju for help, or trying to sneak into the Central Chamber of Commerce to get this core secret, but when it came to Han Jingjing, she was excitedly researching it all by herself. As expected, the thinking of a genius was not something a normal person could imagine. At least in this aspect, Han Jingjing was miles ahead of Lin Yi. This sounded shocking, but if one thought about it carefully, all of Han Jingjing's inventions, including the godly pesticide cauldron, were all extremely overpowered. If it were someone else saying this, Lin Yi would definitely take it as a joke, but it wasn't impossible when it came to Han Jingjing. Who knew, his dream of traveling between Sky Class Island and the secular world might come from her. Hee, Jingjing, isn't that amazing? Han Jingjing smiled shyly. Ugh. Let me be alone for a while. Lin Yi was speechless. She even wanted to research something as overpowered as traveling between the secular world. Wasn't that amazing? Were there any other amazing people in the world? Oh, then let's go out. He wants to stay here alone with Jingjing. Ning Xuefei took the opportunity to smile playfully. Okay. Let them look at the Wangfu stone and the Wangfu stone to their heart's content. Let's go eat first. I'm hungry. Shangwan Laner echoed with a smile. The banquet should be almost ready. You two just stay here for a while. Don't be too late. The official envoy of North Island can't be absent from the banquet. Ning Xuefei grimaced mischievously, then pulled Shangwan Lan, out of the door. Little Curly Bear wanted to play in the research room for a while, but in the end, he was dragged away by the two women by the ear. Chapter 4640. Previously, because of the existence of Ning Xuefei and Shangwan Laner, although their hearts were burning, they always restrained it. But now that a man and a woman were alone in a room, the longing that had accumulated for 2 years was suddenly out of control. Hug. Han Jingjing suddenly murmured with a red face. Lin Yi smiled slightly, reached out and held her in his arms. The two were tightly attached to each other, like glue, and did not separate for a long time. Hey, why are they so conservative? Shouldn't a man and a woman be alone, be dry wood and hot fire? How can they just hug each other and be done? Ning Xuefei, the princess of West Island, lied on the crack of the door of the research room without caring about her image, and her face was full of disappointment. She thought that Lin Yi and Han Jingjing would have further intimate actions, and deliberately pulled Shanghai Laner to lie on the crack of the door for so long. As a result, these two did nothing but hug each other. They were really two pieces of wood. Fei, you are so bad. You even want to see things that are not suitable for children. I really can't stand you. Shanghai Laner said with a scornful face. Well, since you are so noble, can you not squeeze me? Why are you so eager to grab my seat? Ning Shuafei looked at Shangguan Lan, who was lying on her head, and curled her lip speechlessly. These two girls completely forgot that Lin Yi was a master at the peak of the early stage of Yuanying realm, and the strength of his divine sense was far beyond the existence of the same level. Even a fool could notice that they were lying on the crack of the door so blatantly, let alone Lin Yi. The West Island Envoy Mansion was not far from the Island Master's palace. This was a place specially used to receive envoys from all sides. At this moment, Su Lingchong and Kong Mingming had just settled down. For the convenience of the task, the two of them specially asked to be arranged in the same room, so that they could discuss and act at any time. Su Lingchong was sitting and drinking tea, while Kong Mingming was serving tea by the side. At this time, a subtle red shadow suddenly flashed in the window and landed on the table in front of them. Their eyelids suddenly twitched. It was a bloody bat. The blood bat was a spirit beast that was used for internal communication. A secret code was tied to it. It was actually a message from the mysterious man. Su Lingchong and Kong Mingming couldn't help but look at each other. It wasn't strange at all to receive this kind of secret message when they were in the North Island, but now they were far away in the West Island. They didn't expect that they could also receive it, which was a bit incredible. More importantly, as soon as they settled down, a secret message arrived. His timing was so precise. It was truly astounding. Su Lingchong and Kong Mingming looked at the blood bat on the table. They looked at each other and unconsciously revealed a thoughtful expression. However, it was not the time to think too much. Su Lingchong reached out and took the letter. After reading the contents of the mission, his expression became a little strange. What happened to young Master Su? Kong Mingming consciously stepped aside and asked. At his level, he couldn't read this kind of high-level secret message. Once the rules of the center were violated, the consequences would be unthinkable. He did not have the guts to do so. Read it yourself. Su Lingchong casually threw the letter to Kong Mingming. The mysterious man didn't ask for secrecy, and the mission needed him and Kong Mingming to complete it together. Of course, there was no need to hide it. Kong Mingming hurriedly took the letter and read it carefully. After a while, he suddenly looked up at Su Lingchong and said weakly, Young Master Su, I don't understand it. I forgot about this. Su Lingchong patted his head. Then he remembered that the secret code in the letter needed to be specially learnt, and ordinary people couldn't understand it at all. At Kong Mingming's level, he was not qualified to learn the secret code of the center. Kong Mingming smiled embarrassedly and had to hand the letter back to Su Lingchong. He waited to hear the rest. The superior assigned 2 tasks. The first task is to find a way to participate in a trial in West Island and collect a kind of medicinal material called Thunder Xian Ratan. This task is quite normal, and it shouldn't be too troublesome to carry it out. But the second task is a bit weird. Su Lingchong rubbed his chin thoughtfully. What's the second task? Kong Mingming hurriedly asked. The superior asked us to find a way to prevent Lin Yi from making friends with people in West Island, especially not to let him make friends with powerful and influential people. If this trend appears, we must try our best to destroy it and never let him get what he wants. Don't you think this task is weird? Su Lingchong said with a puzzled look. Before, the mysterious man had warned him in person that he couldn't touch Lin Yi without permission, or he would have to bear the consequences. Now he suddenly assigned such a task. It was obvious that he didn't want West Island to be Lin Yi's help. Su Lingchong really couldn't figure out what kind of deep consideration the superior had for the time being. And the key was that he really didn't know how to do the second task. As the official special envoy of North Island, it was normal for Lin Yi to get close to any high-level official in West Island, and others couldn't find fault with it. How could Su Lingchong destroy it? He couldn't run to people and say that Lin Yi was a treacherous and cunning guy, could he? Not to mention that it wouldn't work. If he really did that, the first thing Su Lingchong would do when he returned to North Island, he would be held accountable by Shanghai Tianhua. This second mission is my area of expertise. Kong Xiaoming's eyes lit up after he heard it, and he said excitedly. Specialty? What's your specialty? Su Lingchong was stunned. It's a little hard to say, but in front of you, Child Su, I won't flatter myself. Child Su, have you forgotten that I'm best at harming others without benefiting myself? If you ask me to do something big alone, I may not succeed, but if I just want to ruin someone else's business, it's just a piece of cake. Kong Mingming rubbed his hands excitedly. When it came to this, he almost said that he couldn't do anything right but was good at spoiling things. Is that true? Su Lingchong's heart moved, but he still said with uncertainty, but you've cheated Lin Yi a lot before, but it seems that you've never really cheated him, right? Being exposed by Su Lingchong, Kong Ming suddenly blushed. He scratched his head awkwardly and said, this is mainly because the nature is different. I used to want to deal with Lin Yi, but I underestimated his strength every time. But this time it's different. We don't need to deal with him. We just need to make things difficult for him. It's much easier. At that time, I'll think of a way to trick him. Seeing that Kong Mingming was so confident and reasonable, Su Lingchong had confidence in him. He nodded and said, well, you'll be in charge of this. If you do a good job, I'll personally ask for a reward from my superior. Thank you, Child Su. I won't let you down this time. Kong Mingming was instantly overjoyed. Chapter 46-41. Ever since he found out that Zhong Pingliang was suddenly promoted to the North Island Special Envoy, he had been suppressing his anger. In the past 2 years on Heavenly Island, he felt that he had to surpass Zhong Pingliang in every aspect. Why was this kid able to rise to the top in one step and be on equal footing with Su Lingchong, while he had to continue being a small fry? Not satisfied, Kong Mingming was not satisfied. Every time he saw Zhong Pingliang's arrogant look, he felt unhappy from the bottom of his heart. This time, he finally got a good opportunity to make a career. He must let the higher-ups see his ability, and then he must step on Zhong Pingliang again, to see who was the real boss. Well, as for the first task of collecting Thunder Xian Ratan, it's not urgent, we'll see when the time comes. The most important thing now is to keep an eye on Lin Yi. Su Lingchong squinted his eyes and said. Collecting Thunder Xian Ratan required participating in the trial of West Island, there was no other way but to wait for now. Yes, Master Su, don't worry, Kong Mingming promised again and again. While the two were talking, a woman's voice suddenly came from outside. This was the steward of the envoy's mansion of West Island, who came to inform the people of the North Island to attend the banquet. After the people from the North Island gathered, they were immediately led by the steward to the banquet hall of the island master's palace. A sumptuous banquet had been prepared here, specially to welcome the people from the North Island. Everyone arrived one after another, Lin Yi, Han Jingjing, Shengguan Laner, Ning Shuefei, and the others finally arrived. They kept talking and laughing along the way, which made Lin Yi and Han Jingjing a little embarrassed. These two girls were making fun of them just now. Fei, why are you so late? At this time, a woman stood up from the main seat in the center of the banquet hall, waving to Ning Shuefei from afar. Lin Yi heard the voice and looked over. This woman looked about 30 years old, quite beautiful, especially with a mature and graceful temperament. Compared with Ning Shuefei and the other girls, she had a different kind of charm, but what really attracted Lin Yi's attention was not these, but the woman's hidden strength. He couldn't see any signs at all, so it must be unfathomable. "Aunt Yen, I'll show them around." Ning Shuefei stuck out her tongue and smiled, stepped forward to hold the woman's arm intimately, and introduced to Lin Yi, "This is the Deputy Island Master of West Island, the famous woman Yen Xinlan, who is very famous in the whole 5 Islands of Heaven stage. And Aunt Yen has been very good to me since I was a child." Junior Lin Yi pays respect to Deputy Island Master Yen, Lin Yi said solemnly. His current identity was the official envoy of the North Island, and his every move represented the image of the 3 major pavilions in the North Island. This Yen Xinlan was the West Island's vice-island lord, and she was a legendary woman who was renowned in the 5 major islands of Sky Division. For her to personally come out to receive them was already a sign of how much she valued Lin Yi's group. After all, the North Island didn't send out any substantial big shots this time. No matter how good the relationship between the 2 islands was, it was impossible for the West Island Lord to lower herself to come out personally. The difference in status between them was too big. "Envoy Lin is young and promising. Please be seated." Yen Xinlan nodded and smiled gracefully. She took a deep look at Lin Yi, then looked at Han Jingjing and Shanghai Laner, who were snuggling next to him. She especially found that even Ning Shuefei was a little close to Lin Yi unconsciously. Seeing this, she couldn't help frowning slightly. As the Deputy Island Master of West Island, Yen Xinlan was naturally a typical feminist. It was shameless for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines in her eyes, especially when it involved Ning Shuefei, the future heir of West Island. How could this be? Of course, she didn't like it. Now it was time to welcome the envoy of North Island and to promote the everlasting friendship between West Island and North Island. Yen Xinlan wouldn't embarrass Lin Yi at this time anyway. She still had this kind of tolerance. Lin Yi and the others looked at each other. They nodded and sat down at once. Looking at the delicious food on the table, they couldn't help drooling. Although there was no shortage of food on the sea, it was monotonous. These were the authentic delicacies of West Island. Lin Yi couldn't help swallowing his saliva. "Come on, we're all on the same side. Don't be nervous," Ning Shuefei said with a smile. Lin Yi and the others looked at each other and immediately started to eat. Their table was the main table. In addition to Yen Xinlan, Ning Shuefei, and Han Jingjing from West Island, only Lin Yi and Shangguan Laner from North Island could sit at the main table. Others were not qualified. Of course, with the status and strength of Ram Jia and Lan Tiefu, there was no problem for them to sit at the main table. But they wouldn't show up in this kind of public occasion, let alone sit at the main table that was in the limelight. Among the 5 people at the table, Yen Xinlan was the high and mighty deputy island owner of West Island. Her status was much higher than that of Lin Yi and the others, so it was difficult to maintain a harmonious atmosphere under normal circumstances. But she was a very smart woman and had a unique advantage in creating an atmosphere. With a few warm words and a few harmless jokes, the atmosphere was naturally harmonious. Especially among the people sitting at this table, except for Yen Xinlan herself, the others were all close friends. Of course, at this time, they wouldn't hold back. The only thing that made Yen Xinlan frown a little was that Ning Shuefei was a little too attentive and intimate to Lin Yi. The dignified princess of West Island actually put food into Lin Yi's bowl in public. What would people think if this was spread out? Yen Xinlan just frowned at this scene, but Su Lingchong and Kong Mingming, who were sitting in the corner far away, saw this, and their whole faces twitched. Damn it, this is the task that the higher-ups just assigned. They were just thinking about how to drive a wedge between Lin Yi and the higher-ups of West Island, but in the blink of an eye, they saw Ning Xuefei put food into Lin Yi's bowl in person. How could they bear this? Although Ning Xuefei's strength was not high, she was the future helmsman of West Island. If they allowed her to be so close to Lin Yi, maybe the whole West Island would be under Lin Yi's control in the future. Then, Su Lingchong and Kong Mingming would be scolded to death by the higher-ups. Zhao Ming, how to solve this? Su Lingchong frowned and poked Kong Mingming. He knew that Ning Xuefei and Lin Yi had some personal relationship. After all, when Ning Xuefei went to North Island before, Lin Yi accompanied her all the way. But at that time, he just thought it was because of Shanghai Laner, but now it seemed that it was not the case at all. Kong Mingming nodded calmly, his eyes rolling back and forth between Lin Yi and Ning Xuefei, and he glanced at Yan Xinlan from time to time. Evil ideas kept popping up in his mind. After a while, he suddenly patted his head and excitedly whispered something in Su Lingchong's ear. Good, good, good. This trick is sinister enough. You are really a talent. Why didn't I think of such a sinister trick? Quick, go and arrange it. It's better to do it as soon as possible. Su Lingchong was suddenly shocked. Chapter 46-42. He hurriedly urged Kong Mingming to put it into action. At the same time, he could not help but sigh that there was really a specialization in every field. Kong Mingming was not good at other things, but he was born to be good at this kind of sinister task of doing bad things. As for her, Kong Mingming nodded with a sinister smile, then got up and left quietly. No one knew what he went out to do, but he came back not long after he left. Those who didn't know might think he just went to the toilet. How's it going? Before Kong Mingming sat down, Su Lingchong couldn't wait to ask. Hey, it's all done. Child Su, just wait for a good show later. Kong Mingming smiled proudly. He was good at this kind of thing. Although Lin Yi seemed to be surrounded by beautiful women and enjoyed the happiness of having multiple partners, making all the men in the world envious, jealous, and hateful, he would not be able to laugh soon. At that time, he would just wait to cry. Well, I'll remember you for the top merit this time. Seeing that Kong Mingming was so confident, Su Lingchong immediately felt at ease. After all, the strategy that this guy just offered was really sinister. It could make Lin Yi embarrassed, but it would not force him to do something desperate. It was perfect for completing the task from the top. No one noticed the little tricks of Su Lingchong and Kong Mingming from beginning to end. The welcoming banquet was still going on. After 3 rounds of drinking, the atmosphere became more and more harmonious. Laughter and jokes came one after another, and people toasted each other back and forth. In particular, the female officials of West Island were quite generous. They did not refuse the toasts of the men of North Island. The atmosphere was much warmer than expected, and it was a harmonious scene of the 2 islands being close and friendly. Although Lin Yi's table was not as open as the people below, they were also talking and laughing. From time to time, there would be a burst of sweet laughter like silver bells. At this time, a woman suddenly broke in from the gate. At first, it did not attract other people's attention. After all, most people were a little drunk at this time, and even the guards at the gate could not help but relax their vigilance. What's more, she was a woman. West Island had always been very tolerant to women. However, what happened next caused the joyous atmosphere in the banquet hall to come to an abrupt end. After looking around, the woman walked straight to the main table in the middle, crying as she walked. Finally, she stopped beside Lin Yi and wept at Lin Yi with a face full of hidden bitterness. After witnessing this scene, everyone chose to keep quiet and stared at each other. What was going on? Not only the crowd, but even Han Jingjing, Shang Wanlan, and Ning Shuafei couldn't help but look at each other. They looked at the girl in surprise, and at the same time, they turned to look at Lin Yi. Lin Yi was also puzzled. He shrugged his shoulders helplessly at the girls, not knowing what this woman who suddenly appeared was trying to do. "Who are you?" In the end, it was Yen Xinlan, the deputy island master of West Island, who broke the deadlock first and asked in a deep voice. "I'm just an ordinary woman. I didn't mean to disturb everyone's fun today, but I really have no choice. The child in my belly can't be born without a father." With that, she suddenly hugged Lin Yi and cried, "Lin Yi, I've finally found you. You're so cruel, aren't you? How can you just leave us alone like this? How are we going to live if you do this?" As soon as she said this, there was a sudden uproar. Everyone looked at Lin Yi in shock. It turned out that the special envoy of North Island appointed by Shengwan Tianhua was such a heartless man. "Ha! This is little junior brothers." Shengwan Laner looked back and forth between Lin Yi and the woman with a shocked face. She couldn't help covering her mouth in surprise. Ning Shuafei looked at the woman who suddenly appeared with a face full of suspicion. She was not as naive and pure as Shengwan Laner. Han Jingjing had a strange expression on her face. She grew up in the secular world and had seen all kinds of magical scandals. She didn't expect it to appear on Heaven Stage Island. All of a sudden, the pressure of the whole audience was focused on Lin Yi, and they all had the posture of denouncing the heartless man. Looking at the situation at this time, Su Lingchong, who was hiding in the corner, suddenly laughed slyly. Not to mention, it seemed that this trick really worked. This kind of dirty trick was completely a common trick in the secular world. It was a trick used by those playboys. However, it was very rare on Heaven Stage Island, where the folk customs were relatively simple. After all, in places like North Island and West Island, one had more men than women, and the other had more women than men. There were not many male and female cultivators who could have the opportunity to be together, let alone blackmail people with the children in their wombs. Looking at this scene, Su Lingchong felt that no matter how Lin Yi dealt with it, the relationship between him and Ning Shuafei would definitely be destroyed. This trick of Kong Mingming was simply too fucking evil. This guy was really good at spoiling things. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Lin Yi was not nervous at all. He slightly circulated the true qi in his body, and the woman hurriedly let go of him due to the pain. He looked around calmly, and his eyes fell on Su Lingchong and Kong Mingming, intentionally or unintentionally. His intuition told him that this matter definitely had something to do with these two. "Lin Yi, go back with me, okay? I beg you, I'll give you everything. It doesn't matter how many women you want to find, as long as you don't abandon me, don't abandon our child." The woman continued to cry with snot and tears. Lin Yi secretly frowned when he heard this. This woman who came out of nowhere was really good at acting. If she was in the secular world, she would have the strength to compete for all kinds of awards. Listening to the woman's emotional crying, the expressions of the people present became more and more subtle and strange. No matter whether they were familiar with Lin Yi or not, at least they could see that this guy was really popular with women. To be exact, it was so good that it made people's hair stand on end. Looking at the women around him, each of them was a rare beauty in the world. What was more ridiculous was that each of them was more noble than the other. If he could get the favor of any one of them, he could die without regret, let alone so many of them together. If it was any other man present, if he had Shengwan Laner, Ning Shuafei, and other beauties around him, it would be perfectly normal for him to abandon other common women. If he did not become a heartbreaker, wouldn't it be intolerable by God? Envy, jealousy, and hate. Although these people from the North Island were in awe of Lin Yi, all men had the same position on this kind of matter. Lin Yi, a heartbreaker who did not know how lucky he was definitely their opposite. Chapter 46-43. Everyone held their breath and didn't dare to make a sound, waiting for Lin Yi's reaction. Unexpectedly, the first one to speak at this time was Yen Xinlan. This graceful deputy island owner of West Island darkened her face for the first time, and said in an unhappy tone, "Special Envoy Lin, you can talk about these private things at home. Don't affect everyone's mood here, or you will not only lose face, but also your North Island." Yen Xinlan had a little problem with Lin Yi just now. As a feminist, she deeply hated men's behavior of hugging women, especially when it involved Ning Shuefei, the heir of West Island. But because of the situation just now, it was not good for her to change her face, so she could only suppress this little bit of displeasure in her heart. But now that such a farce had happened, as the host of the banquet, she couldn't keep her face anymore. This Lin Yi looked like a rare talent, but she didn't expect him to be such a bastard who abandoned her after using her. Damned heartless bastard. Yen Xinlan's words were equivalent to directly determining Lin Yi's character. Although she didn't embarrass Lin Yi, she had already shown her and West Island's attitude towards this matter. Everyone present couldn't help whispering and talking, pointing at Lin Yi, who was still sitting still as if nothing had happened. Things had come to this point, and he was still pretending. This guy was really thick-skinned, and he deserved to be the famous pretentious head. Island owner Yen is right. Lin Yi, you are such a disgrace to our North Island, and you have even lost our face to the Outer Island. How dare you be the official special envoy like this? Our North Island has lost all its face because of you. Kong Mingming seized the opportunity to jump out and scold him. The key to framing someone was not to give the other party a chance to explain, so as to create a preconceived impression on everyone. Then, strike the iron while it's hot and make the crime real. In this way, no matter how he explained, it would be useless. He would only make it worse, and the more he explained, the more people would look down on him. At this time, the situation was just right. Kong Mingming stood out and shouted. It was just the right time to hit Lin Yi when he was down. Not to say that Lin Yi would completely become the public enemy, but at least he would be disgraced. In the future, no matter who was close to such a scumbag with a ruined reputation, they would have to weigh the pressure of public opinion, let alone Ning Shuefei, the princess of West Island, who was high above the masses. Seeing that he was about to be condemned by everyone as a scumbag and a heartless man, Lin Yi was not anxious at all at this time. He turned his head and looked at Kong Mingming and Su Lingchong meaningfully. Sure enough, it was these two guys who did it. Being glanced at by Lin Yi, Kong Mingming's face suddenly stiffened. He didn't know whether it was because of the psychological pressure or the pressure of his aura. It was as if his heart had been hit by a heavy hammer. He staggered and almost fell to the ground in a sorry state. Even the expression of Su Lingchong, who was by his side, was obviously slightly unsightly at this moment. Just a glance caused them to feel an enormous amount of pressure. This fellow Lin Yi has actually grown to such a terrifying extent. When they thought that the strength of the middle stage of nascent soul realm was destroyed by Lin Yi with one move before, the two of them felt even colder in their hearts. The complacency that they had just had because of the success of their tricks suddenly disappeared. Even if they could really make Lin Yi suffer a lot this time, this guy was still a strong enemy that could not be underestimated. But fortunately, this time, they could finally make this bastard suffer a big loss. They could just collect some interest first. Later, when their superiors agreed, they would find a way to kill this sworn enemy. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Lin Yi's lips curled up into a playful smile as he looked at the girl who was still putting on an act despite her tears. Although this situation was embarrassing, it was nothing more than a child's play in his eyes. There were at least 100 ways to reverse the verdict for himself. Lin Yi was about to speak, but unexpectedly, Ning Xuefei, who was sitting next to him, opened her mouth first. Looking at the woman up and down, she turned to look at Kong Mingming and said, "It's just a one-sided story from this woman." "How can you be so sure? Did you know the inside story long ago? Isn't it obvious? She didn't care about her reputation and came knocking on our door. It's related to her reputation and integrity. Which girl in this world would joke about something so important?" Kong Xiaoming said stubbornly. Everyone nodded in agreement. A woman's reputation was a big deal no matter where she was. It was so in the North Island, and it was even more so in the West Island where women's rights were supreme. Women here just had a high status, but it didn't mean that they didn't have the shame that women should have. "Oh, a woman's reputation is really important, but let me ask you a question first. Who do you think is prettier, me or her?" Ning Xuefei suddenly changed the topic. Quack. Kong Mingming suddenly froze, and so did all the people present. They looked at Ning Xuefei and the woman back and forth with strange expressions. Ning Xuefei was the standard beauty, while the woman's beauty could only be regarded as average at most. The difference was like heaven and earth. The answer was obvious at a glance. Kong Ming didn't know what was going on, but he didn't dare to say anything. This was the base camp of West Island. If he dared to say that Ning Xuefei, the princess of West Island, wasn't he courting death? What was more, it was a lie. Anyone with eyes knew the answer. Even if Kong Mingming was out of his mind, he wouldn't dare to say the second answer. Of course, the princess is prettier. Kong Mingming had to answer truthfully. "Since you think I'm prettier, then it's strange. Let me ask you, if it were you, would you choose me or her?" Ning Xuefei continued to ask. Hearing this, there was a sudden uproar. They couldn't help but look at each other. Even Yan Xinlan couldn't help but frown. What on earth is this girl planning? This, of course, the princess. Kong Mingming and Su Lingchong looked at each other in confusion, and had to continue to answer. After all, this was not a multiple-choice question at all. Putting Ning Xuefei and this woman together, even a fool would know who to choose. Alright, if even you know what to choose, then why didn't Lin Yi choose me? Why did he choose her? Or do you really think that Lin Yi is a fool who can't distinguish beauty from ugliness? Ning Xuefei raised a complacent smile at the corner of her mouth. This. When Kong Mingming heard this, he was instantly dumbfounded. What kind of goddamn logic is this? It's totally different from Lin Yi's abandonment after seducing her, right? However, in the face of Ning Xuefei's question, he had nothing to say for a while. Although Ning Xuefei's words were a little far-fetched, they were not without reason. The key was that this was the princess of West Island. How could he, Kong Mingming, have the courage to contradict her in public? Not only Kong Mingming, but also all the people present at this time had a puzzled look on their faces. Even the woman who was deeply immersed in her role couldn't help but forget to cry. She could only stare at Ning Xuefei blankly, and couldn't say a word for a long time. Chapter 46-44. Yan Xinlan couldn't help frowning again. Of course, she knew that Ning Xuefei was defending Lin Yi, but in this way, it proved that the relationship between Ning Xuefei and Lin Yi was ambiguous. Otherwise, why would she ask such a question in public and ask why Lin Yi didn't choose her but that woman? This was not something that a princess of West Island should say. Thinking of this, Yan Xinlan looked at Ning Xuefei's strange expression at the moment and suddenly froze. Thinking of the things that were destined to happen at the birthday party, she thought, is this girl trying to convey her feelings to Lin Yi? Aunt Yan, I think there's something wrong with this woman. Catch her and interrogate her strictly. Let's see if she's lying or not. I'd like to know who is so bold that he dares to frame the special envoy of North Island on this occasion. This is to drive a wedge between the friendly relationship between West Island and North Island. Don't take it lightly, Ning Shuefei said with a hint of coldness in her tone. As soon as she said this, the temperature of the audience suddenly dropped a little. Although Ning Shuefei was usually simple and lovely, she was the successor of West Island after all. Her words absolutely carried weight here. Yen Xinlan was slightly stunned when she heard this. She was prejudiced against Lin Yi purely because she hated a libertine like Lin Yi. She was afraid that Ning Shuefei would be cheated by him if she was too close to him. But now that Ning Shuefei spoke for Lin Yi in public, as the deputy island owner, she couldn't refute her in public. Otherwise, outsiders would think that the high-level officials of West Island didn't agree with each other, and that would be a big problem. Guards! Yen Xinlan gave the order and immediately summoned 2 royal guards. Although they were both women, they were clad in military armor and emanated a murderous aura. Especially since they were able to work in the island lord's palace, their strength was naturally not weak. Looking at this aggressive stance, the woman who came out to frame Lin Yi was immediately scared to the point of wetting her pants. Say something. Didn't you promise me that everything will be fine? As long as I cooperate with you, I'll be fine. The woman turned to look at Kong Ming and shouted in panic. She had only come here to earn some spiritual jades. She had never thought that she would lose her life. However, before the woman could finish her sentence, Kong Xiaoming rushed up and kicked her in the head without caring about anything else. He kicked her until all her teeth fell out. He said furiously, "You slut, don't slander me. I know, you must be a spy sent by other islands. Not only do you want to drive a wedge between our North Island and West Island, but you also want to destroy the friendship between us. Now that you've failed to frame senior brother Lin Yi, you're trying to frame me instead. How vicious of you." Woo 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 woo. The woman's mouth was full of blood. After being kicked by Kong Ming, she was unable to speak. Her hair was disheveled as she fell to the ground and howled in pain. Staring at Kong Ming, her eyes were full of hatred. She wanted to eat his flesh and gnaw his bones. Unfortunately, it was impossible for her to do anything at this time. Kong Ming's reaction was not slow. At first glance, it did sound plausible. However, most of the people present were discerning. They all knew that the truth had come to light at this point. No matter what secret was behind it, at least it was certain that Lin Yi was framed. Special Envoy Lin, how do you think we should deal with it? Yen Xinlan knew that she had wronged Lin Yi. She felt a little guilty in her heart. Besides, this kind of thing should be decided by Lin Yi himself. After all, he was the only victim. For the sake of the relationship between the 2 islands, she should give him a satisfactory explanation. Hearing this, Lin Yi looked at the woman on the ground in fear and trepidation, and then looked at Kong Ming, who was eager to cover up. He smiled faintly and said, "As a guest, I'll leave the people of your island to your island to deal with. I have no opinion. Besides, I didn't receive any loss." Good. It's rare for you to have such a bearing at such a young age. Yen Xinlan couldn't help but think highly of Lin Yi. Then she ordered the Imperial Guard, "Take her away, give her a warning, and let her go." Yen Xinlan didn't intend to investigate further. She could judge that this was most likely a prostitute, otherwise she would not come here to do this kind of thing. Prostitutes were pitiful, especially in West Island. Their status was looked down upon by other women. If it was not a last resort, no one would be willing to do this. Yen Xinlan didn't want to embarrass her. Seeing this, Kong Ming suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. Since Yen Xinlan didn't intend to investigate further, then he would be fine. Naturally, he'd be fine. Lin Yi wouldn't do anything to him just because he had some suspicions, would he? He didn't have any evidence anyway. The farce was over. Kong Mingming felt scared and lucky. He returned to Su Lingchong's side with a sullen face, lowering his head, not daring to look at others. Su Lingchong's face was full of depression. He couldn't blame Kong Mingming for what happened today. In his opinion, the plan had been perfect, and the effect had been achieved. If Ning Xuefei hadn't suddenly intervened, Lin Yi would have been reviled by thousands of people and become a real scumbag and heartless man. Ning Xuefei is too partial, isn't she? She spared no effort to exonerate Lin Yi. This can't work. I have to think of another way quickly. I can't let her be friends with Lin Yi. If it goes on like this, the whole West Island will become Lin Yi's home in the future. Su Lingchong looked helpless, while Kong Mingming was speechless. Just now, even Yan Xinlan, the deputy island owner, got mad, but in the end, she was still reversed by a few words from Ning Xuefei. She was so fucking unlucky. Child Su, I didn't do my job well and let you down. Kong Mingming had to lower his voice and apologize. He said too much before, and now he really had no face to face Su Lingchong. It's not your fault this time. We can only blame ourselves for not expecting that Ning Xuefei would be so partial to Lin Yi. If she really had an affair with Lin Yi, shouldn't her first reaction be to denounce him? At least, she should ask clearly first. How could she defend Lin Yi without even asking? Su Lingchong pinched his chin and smiled bitterly. It's too hard to guess a woman's mind. Child Su, what should we do next? Should we think of another way quickly? Kong Mingming asked. Well, this matter can't be delayed for too long. If Lin Yi really has an affair with Ning Xuefei, then it will be too late. Su Lingchong nodded and then said, but we can't do it today. After such a thing happened, they must be on guard. If we do it again, it will be easy to be seen through. Let's go back and think about it. Next time, we can't make any mistakes. Yes, we can only do this first. Kong Mingming nodded helplessly, and at the same time, he began to have evil ideas again. After such a farce, the atmosphere of the welcome banquet was a bit weird. It was no longer as warm as before. After a while, it ended hastily, and everyone went back to their rooms to rest. Chapter 46-45. The birthday party was scheduled for 3 days later. These days, Lin Yi did nothing but report to the island owner's summer palace on time at dawn. Every day, he stayed in the research room with Han Jingjing, Shanghai Laner, and Ning Xuefei to tinker. This semi-finished automatic casting mechanism was very important to him and the King of Junk. Although the electronic components were not in place yet, it didn't mean that they couldn't do anything. Casting was painstaking work, and making this kind of automatic casting mechanism was even more painstaking work. Every part was worth considering and improving. Of course, Han Jingjing and Ning Xuefei were the main force to do these things. Lin Yi and Shanghai Laner were just helping them. Lin Yi, a dabbler in casting, could be of some use, and Shanghai Laner was just joining in the fun. As for little Curly Bear, he was directly sent to the outer room by them. It would be lucky if he didn't make trouble for them. 3 days passed peacefully. On this day, the long-awaited birthday party finally arrived. It was not just a birthday, but Ning Xuefei's 18th birthday. It was a grand festival that belonged to the whole West Island. Although Ning Xuefei was the princess of West Island, it was just an ordinary birthday, so there was no need to make such a big fuss. At most, Shanghai Laner would bring 2 master guards to the North Island, but there was no need to send such a big delegation. The island owner's summer palace was decorated with lanterns and streamers, and everyone was beaming with joy. They gathered in the Intercontinental Banquet Hall in the center of the palace. This was the largest banquet hall in West Island, a sacred and solemn place since ancient times. It was only opened on grand festivals, and Ning Shuafei's coming-of-age ceremony was certainly no less important than any festivals. There was still some time before the birthday party officially began, but Lin Yi arrived at the Intercontinental Banquet Hall in advance. After entering, he found that it was divided into several areas, and each area had clear text labels. The largest area here was naturally the guest area of West Island. In addition, there were Central Island, North Island, South Island, and even East Island. Among the 5 major islands of heaven rank, the East Continent was a high and aloof place. Generally, only people from other heaven rank islands would go to the East Continent to visit, but very few people from the East Continent would come out to support them. It could be seen that although the people from the West Island were all female cultivators, their strength and connections were not to be underestimated. But this only surprised Lin Yi a little, not too much. After all, West Island was the overlord of a region, and it wasn't strange for them to have this kind of foundation. However, when Lin Yi saw another district sign, he suddenly froze. There were 2 words written on this sign, South Island. Lin Yi couldn't help looking back at the previous sign that said South Island. Wasn't there already South Island? How could there be a separate South Island? Is it? Lin Yi suddenly thought of a possibility. South Island and South Island seemed to be the same place, but strictly speaking, they actually represented completely different meanings. South Island was a general name for South Island and the surrounding sea area of South Island. There were a large number of human cultivators here, but South Island was the base camp of the Single-Finger Spirit Beast clan. At this moment, not only Lin Yi, but also the ghost thing couldn't help but be a little shocked. It seemed that this time, not only human cultivators from the sea area of South Island came to West Island, but also the Spirit Beast clan. Didn't the Spirit Beast clan always have nothing to do with human cultivators? How could they have such a friendship with West Island? Lin Yi and the ghost thing were full of doubts, but they had no one to ask at this time. The girls who had been staying together before were not around. Needless to say, Ning Shuafei was the protagonist of this birthday party, and she was busy dressing up at the moment. As her best friends, Han Jingjing and Shanghai Laner naturally accompanied her at this time, so now only Lin Yi was alone. The standard of this birthday party was far larger than expected. It seemed that all the elites of the 5 islands of Heavenly Stage would be gathered. It was the first time for Lin Yi to attend this kind of banquet, so he could broaden his horizons. After walking around, Lin Yi found a seat in North Island and waited for the birthday party to officially start. After about half an hour, the gate of the Intercontinental Banquet Hall was bustling, and all the guests from the 5 islands of Heavenly Stage finally entered one after another. Lin Yi raised his head and glanced at them, then closed his eyes again. At this time, those who entered were not powerful figures, so naturally, there was nothing to see. Those real big shots, because of their status, had to appear at the end of the birthday party. But what made Lin Yi feel a little confused was that although the big shots hadn't appeared yet, people in all the districts had been seated one after another, except for South Island, which was empty, without a single person. After another moment, a large group of female guards suddenly rushed in from the gate, and the atmosphere of the scene became hot in an instant. The protagonist appeared. Surrounded by these women, Lin Yi saw Ning Shuafei at a glance. Although this girl was the princess of West Island, her previous dress was not much different from that of ordinary people. But today was different. Today was her big day. Even if she was unwilling, she had to dress up carefully. Even Lin Yi, who had been familiar with her, at this moment, suddenly saw such a beautiful and delicate Ning Shuafei at this moment, he couldn't help but be amazed. She was really a heavenly beauty. At this time, Han Jingjing and Shangguan Laner were also accompanying Ning Shuefei. Standing together, the three women each had their own merits, causing all the guests to be amazed, and they couldn't help but sigh. There was actually such a stunning beauty in the world, and this trip was really not in vain. Although the three women suddenly attracted everyone's attention, there was another woman beside them who was not inferior to them at all. This woman had the appearance and temperament of 30 years old, and her eyebrows were 70% similar to Ning Shuefei's, but her graceful and noble air was far from comparable to Ning Shuefei's. Ning Shuefei and the others were stunning, but this woman was shocking. Between her frown and smile, there was a compelling heroic spirit, making people unconsciously want to surrender under the hem of her skirt. Seeing this woman's first reaction, Lin Yi actually thought of the legendary Empress Wu Zetian in the secular world. This woman was one of the few top big shots in the 5 Heaven Stage Islands, the West Island Lord, Ning Shangling, who controlled an island force alone. This was the first time that Lin Yi saw this legendary West Island Lord. Before this, he had a lot of conjectures in his heart, but at this moment, after seeing the real person, he knew that his conjectures were too small. This was a peerless beauty, but she was definitely not just a woman. Chapter 46-46. Ning Shangling glanced at the audience with a smile, and then led Ning Shuefei and the others to the main seat in the center. There were 5 elegant phoenix chairs of different sizes. Ning Shangling sat in the middle, Yan Xinlan, the deputy island master, sat on her right, and Ning Shuefei on her left. Shanghai Laner and Han Jingjing also had their own special seats. The host had already taken her seat, which meant that the birthday banquet had officially begun. At this moment, all the big shots from the 5 Heaven Rank Islands finally showed up one after another, and came to offer gifts to celebrate the birthday. What Lin Yi didn't expect was that among these people, he actually found a few acquaintances. The first to appear was a big shot from Middle Island. He wasn't an ordinary sect, but the dignified deputy island master of Middle Island. However, it wasn't the will of heaven, but Chu Wendian. Lin Yi wasn't familiar with this person, and had only met him once. It was said that he had a good relationship with the will of heaven. Of course, this relationship was just good, and it was far from the point of advancing and retreating together. With Chu Wendian's identity, he came to congratulate West Island. After all, this was only Ning Shuefei's birthday banquet, not the birthday banquet of Ning Shangling, the island master of West Island. Middle Island specially sent such a deputy island master, and it was obvious that they wanted to express their goodwill. Chu Wendian presented a sincere gift, and after exchanging a few words with Ning Shangling in public, he went to the VIP area of Middle Island and sat down. After him, the big shots from East Continent came in. Of course, the mysterious and vast East Continent didn't have an island master, and it was impossible for them to send a big shot with the same status as Chu Wendian. After all, it wouldn't be a surprise, but a shock. East Continent's status had always been extremely aloof, and it had never established diplomatic relations with the other Heaven Rank Islands. The guest from the Eastern Continent this time was the Eastern Continent's Morning Pride Golden Female Academy's Deputy Dean, Lu Ziyu. From the name, it was obvious that it was similar to the Morning Star Academy he had seen before. After all, they were both Golden Rank Academies, but the difference was that this was a female academy. As the name implied, it only accepted females, and was similar to those female academies in the secular world. Although the dean and vice dean of any academy in the Eastern Continent couldn't be said to have monstrous power and influence in the Eastern Continent, if they came out from the other Heaven Stage Islands, they would be major characters equivalent to vice island masters. The reverence that everyone present showed towards this vice dean Lu Ziyu was not the slightest bit inferior to Chu Wendian. Lu Ziyu had also given her a great gift. She seemed to have quite a good personal relationship with Ning Shangling. This could be seen from the way the two of them spoke. It was no wonder that she would specially rush over from so far away to attend Ning Shuefei's birthday banquet. Lin Yi even speculated that Ning Shuefei would very likely go to the Eastern Continent's Morning Pride Golden Female Academy to further her studies in the future. This was an unwritten rule among almost all the major factions on the various Heaven Stage Islands. Core disciples, especially successors, had to have the qualifications to study in the Eastern Continent's Island Master. This was not only for the sake of increasing one's strength, but also to broaden one's horizons. More importantly, it was to use this opportunity to rope in the major characters of the Eastern Continent. Even if they couldn't become allies, they definitely couldn't become enemies. Otherwise, Ning Shuefei might not be able to sit firmly on the position of West Island Master in the future. Chu Wendian represented the Middle Island, while Lu Ziyu represented the Eastern Continent. After these two major characters, the one who came with the congratulatory gift was the representative of the Southern Continent. After clearly seeing who it was, Lin Yi was instantly surprised and delighted. Compared to the two before him, this representative from the Southern Continent was really not considered a major character. Many people only glanced at him and didn't pay him any attention. However, Lin Yi was different, because this was an old acquaintance of his. Qi Wenhan, the young master of the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, represents the Southern Continent's Escort Agency Alliance to congratulate Miss Ning on her birthday. Qi Wenhan strode forward with his head held high, and presented his gift in a loud and clear voice. Seeing this, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel a little excited. He really didn't expect the representative of the Southern Continent to be Qi Wenhan. However, when he thought about it, although this was unexpected, it was also reasonable. The Southern Continent's Escort Agency Alliance was the representative of the Southern Continent Sea region, and the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency was now the overlord of the Southern Continent's escort agencies. It could be said that it was reasonable for him to represent the Southern Continent. This time, it wasn't Qi Ziyuan who came, but Qi Wenhan. The other meaning behind this was probably to take this opportunity to let Qi Wenhan build more connections, so that it would be convenient for him to take over the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency in the future. Lin Yi looked at Qi Wenhan from afar. Of course, when old friends met, they should get together and have a good chat. However, his current seat was a little far, and the guest areas of the North Island and the Southern Continent weren't next to each other, so Qi Wenhan couldn't see him at all. He had to find a chance later to catch up. After Qi Wenhan took his seat, the next person to present his gift was Lan Tiefu. As a disciple of the Shanghai Tianhua of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, he presented Ning Shuefei an expensive gift on behalf of the North Island. Although the official special envoy of the North Island this time was Lin Yi, his status was obviously not enough. After all the people who came this time were big shots. Even Qi Wenhan had the chance to take over the Southern Continent's escort agency in the future. On the North Island side, only Lan Tiefu or Ram Jia could come forward to control the situation. This time, it was Lan Tiefu who came forward, which meant that Ram Jia had no interest in this kind of thing. With his aloof personality, he really didn't like this kind of work. Moreover, the two of them were ordered to protect Shanghai Laner in secret. Now that Lan Tiefu showed up in public, Ram Jia couldn't show up even more. After Lan Tiefu, the guests from the Central Island, the East Island, the South Island, and the North Island had taken their seats one after another. Everyone turned their eyes to the door, whispering to each other. At this time, only the South Island was left. They didn't know which Spirit Beast clan, which had never contacted the outside world, would send a gift to the Princess of West Island this time. Under the gaze of tens of thousands of people, the atmosphere was slightly stagnant for a moment. Suddenly, at the door, a figure strode in with majestic gait, looking around and flying. In an instant, he became the focus of the whole audience. Even the protagonists like Ning Shengling and Ning Shuefei were overshadowed by him. Everyone couldn't help but think of one word in their hearts: Who is this master of the Spirit Beast clan? The Spiritual Beast clan had never had any contact with the outside world, so there were only a few high-ranking members that the world was familiar with. However, the person who had appeared this time was an extremely unfamiliar face to everyone. Everyone discussed spiritedly, who was this expert from the Spiritual Beast clan? He can't be just an ordinary minion, right? Isn't that a public provocation? Even as powerful as the Spirit Beast clan, they may not have the guts to casually provoke West Island, right? While people were still talking, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel nervous when he saw this figure. Others didn't know this guy, but Lin Yi had seen him once when he accidentally broke into the Spirit Beast conference, and he definitely had a deep impression of him. This master who represented the Spirit Beast clan of South Island was actually the new Azure Dragon. Chapter 46-47. Lin Yi couldn't help swallowing his saliva secretly. The unforgettable experience in the South Island last time made him deeply understand the power and horror of the Spirit Beast clan. This Azure Dragon was a horrible existence at the same level as Vermilion Bird, and he was at least a master of the sea-splitting stage. Lin Yi didn't know whether there were other masters of the sea-splitting stage present, nor did he know the strength of Ning Shangling, the owner of West Island. But at least he could be sure that in terms of strength alone, this new Azure Dragon was at least in the top 3. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to overtake the host with only his fierce momentum. Azure Dragon, the elder of the Spirit Beast clan of the South Island, congratulates Miss Ning on her birthday on behalf of the king. Although Azure Dragon's momentum was astonishing, his words were not out of line. After giving out the generous gifts, he immediately went to the VIP area of the South Island to take his seat. This could not help but make those who were prepared to watch the show disappointed. They had thought that the spirit beasts were unruly and unruly. Why were they so disciplined? If Azure Dragon knew what people were thinking at this moment, he would definitely laugh 3 times. The Spirit Beast clan was indeed unruly, but they were not fools. This time, they specially came out to attend the birthday party of the Princess of West Island to get close to her, so that it would be convenient for them to do things in the future. They didn't come out to find enemies. Everyone looked at Azure Dragon from afar. At this moment, there was no one around him, nor was there any attendant. It seemed that he was the only one from the Spirit Beast clan of the South Island. But even so, with this guy's strength and status, it was enough to show that the Spirit Beast clan attached great importance to the West Island. Obviously, the West Island also knew the news in advance, otherwise, it would be impossible to prepare the VIP area of the South Island in advance. It was just that they didn't expect that Azure Dragon would come alone. Azure Dragon sat in the VIP area of the South Island and glanced at the audience. If it were someone else, he would feel a little unnatural to be the center of attention, no matter how good his psychological quality was, but he didn't feel it at all. On the contrary, those who were glanced at by him unconsciously withdrew their gazes. There was no other reason. This guy's momentum and deterrence were too terrible. People who were slightly weaker would have a nervous breakdown after being glanced at by him, and it was possible that they would be scared to pee on the spot. Who dared to look at such a monster? Lin Yi also lowered his head nervously. It was not that he was afraid of looking into the Azure Dragon's eyes, but he was afraid of being recognized by the Azure Dragon. Although their appearances were different, it was difficult to associate him with the appearance of the Azure Dragon when he had barged into the Spiritual Beast Conference. However, this Azure Dragon was at least at the sea-splitting stage. Who knew what kind of heaven-shaking and earth-shattering divine abilities he had? Lin Yi was still feeling a lingering fear. Lin Yi was lowering his head when he suddenly felt 2 sharp gazes behind him. He was shocked. However, when he turned around, he discovered that the 2 gazes belonged to Lan Tiafu and Ram Jia. Lan Tiafu sat not far from Lin Yi, while Ram Jia sat alone in an inconspicuous corner in order to fool others. At this moment, the two of them were not looking at Lin Yi, but at the azure dragon through him. It could be seen that both Lan Tiefu and Ram Jia were interested in this new azure dragon. They were the higher-ups of the three pavilions on the North Island. Azure Dragon had suddenly appeared in the world on behalf of the Spiritual Beast clan, and no one knew what would happen next. Therefore, this matter would inevitably attract the attention of all human forces. The two of them had to find out the details of Azure Dragon, so that the three pavilions on the North Island could prepare countermeasures in advance. Just as Lin Yi was secretly speculating, he suddenly felt an extremely terrifying gaze. Lin Yi suddenly felt a chill in his heart. This gaze did not carry any oppressive aura, but the simple pressure of the gaze made his hair stand on end. This feeling could no longer be described as terrifying, but only as terrifying. Lin Yi turned around subconsciously, and sure enough, the owner of this gaze was Azure Dragon. However, Azure Dragon was not looking at him at the moment, but at Lan Tiefu and Ram Jia. This was clearly a counterattack against the two of them who were staring at him. Lin Yi's interest was piqued when he saw this. There was no doubt that the new Azure Dragon was powerful, and Ram Jia and Lan Tiefu were also people with unfathomable strength. He wondered what the outcome of their secret confrontation would be. Lin Yi initially thought that this confrontation of gazes would last for a while, but to his great surprise, Ram Jia was obviously unable to hold on after only a short while. He withdrew his gaze somewhat awkwardly, and Lan Tiefu quickly withdrew his gaze as well. Azure Dragon was the only one who still maintained an extremely aggressive gaze. However, when he looked at Lan Tiefu and Ram Jia again, there was an obvious hint of contempt in his eyes. Lin Yi was shocked at once. Given Azure Dragon's strength, it was not surprising that he could have the last laugh. What surprised him was that Ram Jia, the number one person among the new generation in the North Island, was actually so weak in front of Azure Dragon. Although Lan Tiefu was suspected of deliberately withdrawing his gaze, he probably would not be able to hold on for long. At the end of the day, although Lan Tiefu and Ram Jia were powerful, that was only relative to the younger generation of experts. There was still a big gap between them and the true top-notch existences. It was obvious that the new Azure Dragon of the Spirit Beast clan was a veteran expert whom they could not contend with at the moment. At this point, Lin Yi initially thought that this matter would come to an end. However, to his surprise, Azure Dragon suddenly stood up and walked straight toward the North Island's VIP area, attracting everyone's attention at once. Seeing Azure Dragon striding over, Lin Yi was at a loss for words. Although this newly appointed elder of the Spiritual Beast clan was powerful, his tolerance was a little too low. He had only been glanced at by Lan Tiefu and Guang Jia, yet he was trying to cause trouble for them in front of everyone. However, to Lin Yi's surprise, after Azure Dragon arrived at the North Island's VIP area, he did not look for Lan Tiefu and Ram Jia. He did not even look at them. Instead, he stopped directly in front of himself. Looking at Azure Dragon's half-smile face to face, Lin Yi hurriedly stood up. He could not help but feel his scalp tingle. This. Could he have discovered my identity? Nice to meet you, Special Envoy Lin. I've heard about your heroic deeds in Southland. You're really young and promising, Azure Dragon suddenly said with a smile. What? Heard about my heroic deeds in Southland. Hearing this, Lin Yi was so scared that he almost turned around and ran. Any normal person would have been scared to the point of going insane. Does this mean that he has seen through my identity? Chapter 46-48. Special Envoy Lin, you don't have to be surprised. Although I'm in the South Island, I know everything about South Continent. Azure Dragon still had a smile on his face, and it seemed that he really didn't mean to hurt Lin Yi. Lin Yi let out a breath of relief. Southern Continent and Southern Island were only one word apart, but the difference in Azure Dragon's words was huge. If he'd said Southern Island, then Lin Yi would have known for sure that he'd been recognized. But now that he'd said Southern Continent, then it had to be about the Guizhou Escort Agency Festival. Elder Azure Dragon, you flatter me. I'm just doing my friend a favor. It's a piece of cake, Lin Yi said lightly. Your piece of cake is a legend for those people in South Continent. Are you saying that they are too weak or that you are too strong? Azure Dragon smiled non-committally. Without waiting for Lin Yi's answer, he continued, I'll also visit North Island in the future. I hope Special Envoy Lin can introduce me to you. After saying this, Azure Dragon ignored the surprised eyes of Lin Yi and other people and turned back to the VIP area of South Island alone. What on earth is this guy up to? Lin Yi's mind was full of doubts at the moment. He didn't know why Azure Dragon suddenly came to him, and he didn't know why this guy said these words. What was the deep meaning behind it? It was really confusing. Lin Yi was puzzled, and everyone else present was even more baffled. The Azure Dragon Elder of the Spirit Beast clan was actually trying to strike up a conversation with a young disciple from the Northern Islands Clear Cloud Pavilion. This kind of thing was simply incomprehensible. No matter how you looked at it, the difference between them was just too big. Because of Azure Dragon, Lin Yi had become the focus of the audience at this time. Qi Wenhan, who hadn't noticed him before, was suddenly surprised and happy. He never dreamed that he would meet Lin Yi in West Island. If it weren't for the fact that his every move represented the South Continent Sea, and if it weren't for the fact that this occasion was too important and sensitive, Qi Wenhan would definitely rush over and give Lin Yi a bear hug. But now, he could only suppress his excitement and wave at Lin Yi from afar. Lin Yi quickly noticed this scene. He immediately threw Azure Dragon to the back of his mind and gestured to Qi Wenhan, indicating that after the birthday banquet ended, they would find a time to have a proper gathering. While Lin Yi and Qi Wenhan greeted each other. At this moment, Lan Tiefu and Ram Jia, who were also sitting in the VIP area of the Northern Island, could not help but fall into deep thought. They stared at Azure Dragon's back, as if they wanted to see through him completely. What the Azure Dragon said to Lin Yi just now was clearly heard by both of them. This was a huge incident that had to be reported to the higher-ups immediately. Azure Dragon's sudden appearance to attend the birthday banquet of the Princess of West Island was already very suspicious. Now, he even said that he was going to visit the Northern Island. What was the Spirit Beast clan going to do? How could he come out and walk around? Was he going to publicly break the agreement signed by the Spirit Beast King and the Human Alliance? A large part of the reason why the 5 Heaven Rank Islands were able to maintain peace all these years was because of this treaty. Otherwise, with the estrangement between the spirit beasts and human cultivators, a war could break out at any time. That would be a huge matter. The banquet continued. But everyone's eyes were still unconsciously fixed on the VIP area of the Southern Island. The impact of Azure Dragon on them was too great. Although he came to congratulate the Princess of West Island, everyone could clearly see the restlessness of the Spirit Beast clan from his action. Maybe this was a sign that the Spirit Beast clan was going to go out of the Southern Island. Thinking of this, everyone shuddered with fear. There was no doubt that the Spirit Beast clan was powerful and terrible, but they never went out of the Southern Island, so human cultivators could sit back and relax. But now, once the Spirit Beast clan was going to come out, it would definitely bring a big change to the 5 Heaven Stage Islands. Even if they didn't start a war. But wherever they went, the hidden threat they brought to human beings was enough to change the general trend. The 5 Heaven Stage Islands that had been peaceful for many years were bound to rise again. Maybe it would be another super chaotic world. Thank you for coming all the way here to support us. Today is my daughter's 18th birthday. It's also a rare day for West Island. On behalf of all the sisters in West Island, I thank you here. After Ning Shangling said this, everyone looked away from Azure Dragon, and the banquet finally returned to its normal rhythm. For my daughter's birthday, let's raise our glasses together and drink up the wine in our glasses. No one will go back tonight. Ning Shangling smiled and raised her glass. Drink up the wine in our glasses, no one will go back tonight. Everyone echoed in unison in high spirits, and the originally somewhat depressing atmosphere was instantly stirred up. Everyone raised their glasses high and drained them in one gulp. Although Ning Shangling was a woman, women in West Island couldn't be judged by common sense. Not to mention that she, the owner of West Island, was noble and cold when she was quiet, graceful when she was enthusiastic, and her every move on this occasion was even more magnificent. As the owner of an island, she actually came down to toast in person. From the beginning to the end, she went to every VIP area and drank up the wine in one gulp. The whole audience roared and applauded. Sure enough, women were not inferior to men. Ning Shangling came out for a toast, and Ning Shuefei, naturally, had to follow her. She had the demeanor of a mother in a situation like this, and her drinking was clean and neat as well. Even Lin Yi was a little surprised. Was this girl trained since she was young? Wherever Ning Shangling and Ning Shuefei went, they naturally became the unique focus of the whole audience. This time, when they walked to the VIP area of the North Island, they deliberately stopped in front of Lin Yi. Although they were toasting to all the guests from the North Island, people with discerning eyes could see that there was obviously a deeper meaning. Feeling the strange eyes of the people, Lin Yi couldn't help but secretly smile bitterly. Just now it was Azure Dragon, and now it was Ning Shangling. She made him the focus of the whole audience twice. Did he activate the protagonist's halo today? Why did all the big shots come over? While toasting, Ning Shuefei blinked at Lin Yi, as if to express something, but Lin Yi was confused. Although he was familiar with Ning Shuefei, they didn't have a tacit understanding to understand each other's thoughts with just a look. What did she mean? After the toast, as usual, Ning Shangling should immediately go to the next VIP area, but this time she unexpectedly stayed a little longer. She took a deep look at Lin Yi and said with a smile, "You are Lin Yi, right? Feifei has mentioned to me many times, thank you for taking care of me before." Chapter 46-49. Well, I hope you have the strength. Ning Shangling nodded slightly, then turned around and left. Ning Shuefei took a deep look at Lin Yi, then followed her mother. Lin Yi rubbed his head strangely. What did she mean by having the strength? Somehow, he always felt that Ning Shuefei's eyes were a little strange, and he didn't know what they wanted to express. Ning Shangling and Ning Shuefei left, but Shanghai Laner and Han Jingjing stayed. Compared with following Ning Shangling to toast everywhere, they preferred to stay with Lin Yi, which was much more comfortable. Do you too feel that Feifei's expression is a little strange? Lin Yi couldn't help asking. Shanghai Laner and Han Jingjing had been staying with Ning Shuefei all the time, so they should know some inside information. Strange? No. The two women responded in unison. After being stunned for a while, Han Jingjing said thoughtfully, "But really, I think Feifei seems to have something on her mind, but she just doesn't want to tell us. She has always been like this. She looks careless, but if something really happens, she will always handle it by herself, and will never take the initiative to tell us. I'm used to it." Shanghai Laner shook her head helplessly. Careless? Lin Yi couldn't help glancing at Shanghai Laner. It seemed that she was the only one who could be described as this. Although Ning Shuefei's status was similar to hers, their situations were actually quite different. Shanghai Laner was the apple of Shanghai Tianhua's eye. She had never felt any pressure since she was a child, and she had never said that she wanted to take over Soaring Pavilion. Besides, it was difficult for a woman to do that in the North Island, so she was so carefree. But Ning Xuefei was different. Although her character was similar to Shanghai Laner's, she was the future heir of West Island. It was absolutely deceiving herself to say that she had no pressure. No matter how tolerant Ning Shangling was to her, she would never relax her comprehensive training. The princess of West Island, who was raised in this kind of environment, must be a very persevering existence in her bones. Otherwise, how could she shoulder the whole West Island in the future? After 3 rounds of drinking, the atmosphere at the scene was completely on the right track. The masters from all walks of life, who were a little restrained before, obviously became more frequent with each other. Ning Xuefei's birthday party was just an excuse. The key reason why these big shots came to West Island from thousands of miles away was to build relationships. But in this situation, they not only had the opportunity to build a good relationship with West Island. He would also have the chance to get in touch with the other big shots of Heaven Stage Island. Under normal circumstances, there would not be so many important figures gathered together, especially the top-notch elders of the spirit beasts. When the atmosphere was in a good mood, Ning Shangling, who had returned to the main seat, suddenly stood up again. Everyone consciously quieted down at once. This was not only a courtesy to the host, but also a reverence to the owner of West Island. Even Azure Dragon, a spirit beast elder who was rebellious and had incredible strength, was afraid of Ning Shangling. At this moment, they all looked at Ning Shangling tactfully, waiting for her to speak. Friends from the 5 islands of Heavenly Stage, on behalf of the entire West Island, I would like to thank you again for coming. Taking advantage of this rare opportunity, I would like to announce an important thing to all of you. Ning Shangling's eyes slowly swept around the audience. Seeing that everyone was waiting, she continued to announce, as you all know, today is not only my daughter's 18th birthday, but also her coming-of-age ceremony. According to the rules of West Island, I will choose a husband for her. As soon as she said that, the audience suddenly burst into an uproar. Lin Yi and the others had never heard of this rule, so they were all shocked. But some people had prepared for it. Obviously, this was a traditional practice of West Island. Somehow, Lin Yi suddenly felt a little lost at this moment. Strictly speaking, his relationship with Ning Xuefei was actually limited to good friends, far from romantic love. But at this moment, when he suddenly heard that Ning Xuefei was going to get married, the feeling of emptiness in his heart was real. Lin Yi suddenly shook his head. Ning Xuefei was going to get married sooner or later. After all, she was the heir of West Island, and the choice of her husband was directly related to the overall situation and stability of the whole West Island. This kind of thing must be put on the agenda early, but he did not expect it to be so sudden. At this time, Han Jingjing seemed to know what was on Lin Yi's mind. She suddenly held Lin Yi's hand tightly, suddenly blinked her big watery eyes, and said in a low voice, "Brother Lin Yi, Jingjing and Fei Fei are good friends, we don't want to be separated." "Yes, me too." Shanghai Laner also blurted out, but then she suddenly blushed. She felt something was wrong, so she quickly added, I mean, we are going back to the North Island, and there is no chance to see each other. If Fei Fei gets married, it will be even less. But as long as she marries junior brother, there will be no problem. In that case, even if she is the princess of West Island, she can often come to the North Island to play with us. This. Lin Yi was speechless for a while. Shanghai Laner was more straightforward than Han Jingjing. Just because they wanted more chances to be together, they urged him to pursue Ning Xuefei. The logic of these two girls was so simple and straightforward that it was cute. But they were too naive. Ning Shuefei was the princess of West Island, the person who was destined to take over the whole West Island in the future. Even if he really had this idea, it was definitely not an easy thing. No matter how much Ning Shangling doted on Ning Shuefei, on this kind of thing, she had to consider the interests of the whole West Island first. There was no doubt that this was not the time for Ning Shuefei to pursue happiness. It was purely a marriage alliance. The person who could become the husband of the Princess of West Island must either have the corresponding status or absolutely powerful strength. One must be one of the two. As for the current Lin Yi, in terms of strength, he was only at the peak of the early stage of Yuanying realm, and in terms of status, he was only the second senior brother of the inner core supervisor of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Although such conditions were beyond the reach of most ordinary cultivators, it was definitely extremely difficult to climb up the social ladder of the Princess of West Island with this. Even if it was not a fool's talk, it was definitely extremely difficult. Suddenly, Lin Yi understood what Ning Shangling said to him just now. That could be regarded as an expectation, and it made Lin Yi take his current strength and status seriously. Lin Yi was shaking his head secretly, but Ning Shangling's next words made him and everyone present excited. If you want to be the husband of the Princess of West Island, you must have the most potential and strength. This is the biggest and only requirement. Chapter 4650. I think everyone here has heard that the most important trial in West Island is about to start. It's a rare opportunity, so I plan to let the winner of this trial become my daughter's future husband. Ning Shangling's unhurried words were like a clap of thunder in the air, stunning everyone present. Their eyes lit up, and no one spoke for a long time. Trial in West Island. What the hell is that? Lin Yi was stunned, and he couldn't help but feel a little confused. Everyone else here knew something about West Island, but he had never even heard of it. Although he had been with Ning Shuefei and the others a few days ago, everyone had been focusing on the automatic casting mechanism, and they had never mentioned it at all. Now in retrospect, Ning Shuefei might have deliberately not said these things. In front of Lin Yi and the others, she always acted carefree, and her acting was really good, so Lin Yi and the others didn't notice the heaviness in her heart. Looking at everyone's extremely expectant expression, Lin Yi shrugged his shoulders in confusion. Could it be that this trial in West Island was so famous that even these outsiders who were not locals of West Island were so excited? In the past, when he was in the secular world, Lin Yi was no stranger to trials at all. He would participate in this trial from time to time, but since he arrived at Heaven Stage Island, he rarely participated in trials. Except for the newcomer's trial in the beginning, he hadn't participated in any more trials in the past year. He didn't expect that it would suddenly appear again, and in such an unexpected way. Brother Lin Yi, the trial in West Island, which is held once every 3 years, is very famous in the whole 5 islands of Heaven Stage. Han Jingjing, who was next to him, saw that Lin Yi was confused, so she immediately whispered in his ear and explained. Is there anything special about it? Lin Yi asked curiously. It wasn't strange for it to be a trial, but if it was a well-known trial on the 5 islands of Heaven Stage, then it would be a little interesting, not to mention that this time it was related to Ning Shuefei's marriage. I don't know what's so special about it. Han Jingjing stuck out her tongue in embarrassment. In the past 2 years in West Island, she had never left the island master's palace. To be precise, she rarely left the research room. She didn't know much about the outside world, and she never participated in any trial. Moreover, she had never had the chance to experience this triennial trial before. It was her first time, and she had only heard a few words about it from Ning Shuefei. I know that. Shanghai Laner, who was at the side, knew much more than Han Jingjing. She came over and explained, Grandpa once talked about this trial on the West Island. He called it one of the most valuable trials on the 5 Heaven Rank Islands. It's very rare. Oh. Lin Yi was stunned for a moment. Shanghai Tianhua's knowledge and vision were definitely at the top of the Heaven Stage Island. Even he attached so much importance to the West Island trial, so it must be unique. There's nothing special about the rules of the trial itself. The rarest thing about the West Island trial is its trial site. Shanghai Laner tilted her head and recalled for a while. Then she continued to say to the two, "It's said that there's an adventurous sea area near West Island, which is the remains of a battlefield left in ancient times. Because it's surrounded by sea fog and prohibitions, it's impossible to get in or even find it. It can only be opened once every 3 years by a specific opportunity." An ancient battlefield. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. He felt an ancient and tragic aura coming to him, which made him tremble unconsciously. At the same time, he couldn't help but be eager to have a try. It was said that in ancient times, geniuses and powerhouses came forth in large numbers. So, this battlefield remains where countless ancient heroes were buried must be very extraordinary. Well, I heard from my grandpa that it's a very dangerous place, but there are countless treasures of heaven and earth in it. If you're lucky, it's not impossible to get the inheritance of an ancient powerhouse. Basically, as long as the disciples can survive and complete the trial, they'll make great progress. That's why the West Island trial is so famous. In fact, we have a similar trial in the North Island, but the requirements are higher. Shanghai Laner said. I see. There's a chance to get the inheritance of an ancient powerhouse. It sounds like a great trial indeed. Lin Yi nodded thoughtfully. This ancient battlefield remains is a strategic existence for the whole West Island. In the past, every time it was opened, it was basically only open to the local core disciples of West Island. There were few opportunities for outsiders to participate. But according to Aunt Ning's words, I'm afraid it's a little different this time. Shanghai Laner said. Well, no wonder everyone is so excited. Lin Yi glanced around and saw everyone's excited expression. The ancient battlefield remains was such a key resource. Now, because of Ning Xuefei, Ning Shengling was going to open it to the public for the first time. She deserved to be the owner of an island. Other people set up an arena at most in the Kung Fu competition, but in Ning Shengling's hands, she set up an ancient battlefield remains. This kind of courage and generosity was really extraordinary. However, if she wanted to choose the most potential and the most powerful younger generation as she said, she really needed such an excellent battlefield. Otherwise, if it was just a simple arena, she could only see the current strength at most, but could not see the future potential at all. Of course, the person chosen in that way was not worthy of the dignified princess of West Island. Lin Yi's eyes finally fell on Ning Xuefei. This girl, who had always been simple and optimistic, now had a strange pale face. Since he met Ning Xuefei in the far North Island, this was the first time that Lin Yi saw such an expression on her face. Helpless, hesitant, delicate, and pitiful, it made people feel sorry for her. For Ning Xuefei, the so-called trial of West Island was undoubtedly a kung fu competition to find a spouse. Most girls would not be happy about this kind of thing. Ning Xuefei wanted to resist, but she had no choice. She was the princess of West Island, born with supreme status and power, but at the same time, she also had to pay the corresponding price. Marriage was just one of the most inconspicuous things, and this was no exception in West Island where women's rights prevailed. Lin Yi suddenly remembered that at the welcoming banquet a few days ago, facing the woman who suddenly broke in to frame him, Ning Xuefei had said those words in public without hesitation. At that time, he just felt a little strange, but now he thought that it might be a hint, or it should be said that it was simply a clear indication. Why didn't Lin Yi choose me? Chapter 46-51. Lin Yi wasn't very sensitive when it came to relationships, but he'd come all this way from the common world, and he'd had so many women by his side. Even if he hadn't been enlightened, he'd have made some progress. Plus, he wasn't an idiot. When Lin Yi was looking at Ning Xuefei in a daze, Ning Xuefei happened to look at him too. Their eyes met, and time suddenly stopped. Lin Yi had never had any improper thoughts about Ning Xuefei, but at this moment, their hearts were unconsciously drawn closer. Suddenly, Lin Yi had a feeling that his heart was pounding. Under Ning Xuefei's expectant gaze, Lin Yi took a deep breath. He was afraid that he had to find a way to interfere in the sudden trial of West Island. The trial of West Island will officially start in 2 days. If you are interested, you can sign up for it. I believe you won't be disappointed. After the announcement, Ning Shengling raised her glass to the crowd, drank it up, and took Ning Xuefei to leave first. The whole place was silent. Since the host had left, it meant that the birthday party was over. But obviously, the crowd hadn't recovered from the surprise just now. They all stared at the back of the disappearing figure at the gate with burning eyes. It was already an unexpected gain to be able to participate in the trial of West Island this time. If they performed well in the trial, they would have a chance to become the husband of the Princess of West Island. This was a chance to reach the sky in one step. After a long time, the people present finally left one after another and went back to their residences to prepare. Although not everyone would participate in this extremely rare trial of West Island, anyone with strength and ambition would never let go of this opportunity. Child Su, this is not right. Master Su, this isn't right. That pervert Lin Yi will definitely participate in this test. What if he's chosen as Ning Xuefei's husband? Wouldn't we be a complete failure? After returning to the room, Kong Mingming couldn't help but worry. If they failed the task, they would be severely punished, and he didn't want to be the scapegoat. Do I need you to tell me? How can I not know about this? Do you have any good ideas? Su Lingchong paced back and forth in the room in frustration. Ning Shengling's sudden announcement was a good opportunity for others, but it was a big trouble for the two of them. Wasn't it a natural opportunity for Lin Yi to get close to Ning Xuefei? No. Kong Mingming shook his head helplessly. A few days ago, he tried to ruin the relationship between Ning Xuefei and Lin Yi by taking advantage of the welcoming banquet, but he was exposed on the spot. Until now, he hadn't figured out how to further sow discord. He didn't expect that Lin Yi would have a chance to further his relationship with Ning Xuefei. What should they do? If not, then what the hell are you talking about? Su Lingchong waved his hand in annoyance. His face was filled with unease and anger. As the two of them were talking, a faint red shadow suddenly flashed in from the window. Su Lingchong and Kong Mingming were startled at the same time. Blood Bat Messenger. Su Lingchong hurriedly removed the note from the back of the blood bat. As expected, it was indeed the latest instructions from the mysterious person. However, after reading it, Su Lingchong's face was filled with astonishment and a strange expression. Child Su. What did the higher-ups say? Kong Mingming asked cautiously. The higher-ups already know that Ning Shengling is going to choose a husband for her daughter through the West Island trial test. They asked us to try our best to prevent Lin Yi from succeeding, even if we have to ruin the trial by hook or by crook. But... Su Lingchong suddenly paused. But what? Kong Mingming hurriedly asked. The higher-ups mean that in this West Island trial test, we'd better stand out and take the opportunity to get close to the Princess of West Island. When saying this, Su Lingchong couldn't help but look a little strange. Well, Child Su, why don't you try it yourself? Kong Mingming took the opportunity to suggest fuck off. Don't you know what I'm like? Su Lingchong suddenly became angry out of shame. His eyes were about to spit fire to kill people. If it were in the past, he would absolutely be happy to do this. But in this situation, there was no way to try it. Kong Mingming suddenly shrank his head. The matter of Su Lingchong being killed wasn't a secret to them. In fact, those who were familiar with Su Lingchong knew that not only was this fellow physiologically incomplete, even his mind had long since been warped. Otherwise, how could he be a couple with Meng Tong? Well, why don't I do it? Kong Mingming hesitated for a moment and said. He had wanted to say this from the beginning. He had always been looking forward to using Ning Shuefei, the princess of West Island, to rise to the top in a single bound. He had done this in the secular world before. This guy was a petty scoundrel who liked to get close to women. The princess of West Island had such a noble identity. Once he became her husband, he would be a big shot standing at the top of West Island in the future. If he was clever, it was not impossible for him to replace the princess and become the real owner of West Island. At that time, he would not need to be a minion of the center, and he would not need to obey Su Lingchong. What was more, Ning Shuefei was not just a princess of West Island. She herself was a super beauty. Such a stunner would make any man drool, except for Su Lingchong, who was a pervert with a physical defect and a twisted mind. However, even if Kong Mingming coveted Ning Shuefei, he did not dare to have any extravagant thoughts. After all, with his strength and status, the gap between him and the princess of West Island was too big. Even a toad wanting to eat a swan's meat was not the way to do it. If it was set out, he would be laughed to death. But now it was different. Kong Mingming did not have much power, but if he had the support of the huge and mysterious organization, the center, behind him, it would be possible, right? The longer he joined the center, the more he knew about the power of this mysterious organization, and the more shocked he was. If he could get the full support of the top this time, Kong Mingming believed that he definitely had a chance to succeed, and the chance was not small. You. Hearing this, Su Lingchong looked him up and down, and there was obviously some distrust on his face. He almost wrote the words, overconfident, on his face. I just have such a suggestion. Kong Mingming could not help but feel anxious. If the other party knew that he only wanted to take the opportunity to get promoted, he would suffer a lot. Well, there is no other candidate except you. Su Lingchong thought for a while and nodded. Although he felt that this guy was not worthy of Ning Shuefei, the problem was that he could not do it himself. Who else could it be except Kong Mingming? Thank you, child Su. Kong Mingming was overjoyed. This time he did not come to West Island in vain, and there was a chance to turn things around. Chapter 46-52. With his and Kong Mingming's strength, it was hard enough to deal with Lin Yi alone, not to mention that they would have to deal with other powerful competitors. This matter must be planned in the long run and prepared in advance. While Su Lingchong and Kong Mingming were plotting, the other people were also gearing up for the next trial test in West Island. Only Lin Yi, as usual, was meditating and practicing after returning to his room. However, Lin Yi only meditated for less than an hour this time. He couldn't help thinking of Ning Shuefei's resentful and hopeful expression. At this time, he was really not in the mood to practice. Although he had secretly made up his mind to participate in the trial test in West Island before at the banquet, Lin Yi was still a little hesitant at the moment. After all, this thing happened too suddenly, and the relationship between him and Ning Shuefei was not natural, far from the point of marriage. If he really succeeded this time, what about his other female friends? Would it be fair to them? What would they think after knowing it? However, it was impossible for Lin Yi to be cruel and ignore Ning Shuefei. When he thought of this girl's expression at the banquet, he couldn't help feeling a little heartache. When he was hesitating, the door was suddenly pushed open. Lin Yi heard the sound and looked up. It was Laner and Han Jingjing from Shanghai Laner. Why did they come out in the middle of the night instead of resting in the island owner's palace? Why are you two here? Don't you sleep so late? Lin Yi looked at the two women strangely, and then added, "Where is Fei Fei? Why doesn't she come? The one who tied the bell should untie it." Lin Yi felt that if he wanted to solve the current dilemma, he had to make it clear to Ning Xuefei face to face. At least, he had to thoroughly understand her mind first. What if those so-called hints before were just his wishful thinking and misunderstanding? This matter was related to Ning Xuefei's marriage, so there was no room for carelessness. Lin Yi felt that even if he wanted to help Ning Xuefei solve this predicament, the leader must be Ning Xuefei herself. Only when she personally said her wish, Lin Yi would be able to realize it for her without any distractions. Otherwise, everything would be based on guessing, and he would always be uncertain. She can't come. Shangwan Laner shrugged her shoulders helplessly. One was marked by the company one kept. She had learned some of Lin Yi's habitual little tricks to perfection. Can't come. Lin Yi was taken aback for a moment and then asked nervously, "Why? Did something happen?" "Don't be nervous, big brother Lin Yi. Fei Fei, she's okay. She can't come out with us because of the rules of West Island. Any aristocratic woman over the age of 18 must wait in the boudoir to choose a husband, and she can't come out and run around. Fei Fei is the princess of West Island, and so many eyes are watching her," Han Jingjing explained. "I see. That is to say, before choosing a husband, she will lose her personal freedom." Lin Yi couldn't help feeling a little sad for Ning Xuefei. Being the princess of West Island was her luck, but at the same time, it was her great misfortune. Although it had only been a few days since he came to West Island, Lin Yi found a very interesting phenomenon. Although feminism was prevalent in West Island, the higher the level, the less obvious feminism was. All kinds of behaviors were more like a patriarchal society, and even to some extent, it was even worse. Take marriage as an example. In a normal feminist society, the woman should have the absolute initiative. It was more like for a man to stay in the boudoir. But in fact, it was true for the ordinary class of West Island. But when it came to the level of aristocracy, women were the opposite. Lin Yi speculated that the main reason why West Island did this deliberately was that they wanted to connect with the outside world. After all, aristocratic women were likely to marry the big forces of the outer island. If even they absolutely followed feminism, it would not bring benefits to West Island, and it might bring a great disaster. Yes, but it's not a big deal for Fei Fei if she can't go out of the island master's palace. She is originally a little homebody like Jingjing, and now she is staying in the research room. Shangwan Laner said. The vocabulary of the secular world was at her fingertips, and she spoke it more fluently than Lin Yi. That's true, but I'm afraid she doesn't feel good in her heart. After all, her marriage can only be decided by God. Lin Yi sighed and couldn't help but become a little silent. Brother Lin Yi, if you can't be chosen this time, Fei Fei will be sad for the rest of her life. You must not fail. Han Jingjing looked at Lin Yi with burning eyes and said. Yes, Fei Fei is not willing to marry those who are blinded by greed. Little junior brother, you can only win this time. We all believe in you. Shangwan Laner encouraged him. Well, this is just our wishful thinking. Fei Fei may not think so. Lin Yi had to smile bitterly. He didn't know what Ning Xuefei was thinking, and that was the most troublesome thing. Who said that? Han Jingjing suddenly took out a letter and handed it to Lin Yi. She said, Brother Lin Yi, Fei Fei asked me to give this to you. Lin Yi was slightly stunned when he saw this. He took the letter and opened it. He found that there was no content on it. There was only a line of delicate handwriting. To be precise, there were only 6 words: see, or never see again. At first glance, it was simply a prose poem of the stream of consciousness. It made people confused and didn't know what she was trying to express. However, this was not a problem for Lin Yi. He used to be a scholar in the secular world. He was instilled with all kinds of knowledge by old Lin since he was young. There was a period of time when he used a broken netbook to learn poetry and ancient prose. It was in the name of improving the self-cultivation of an assassin. After pondering for a while, Lin Yi already understood what Ning Xuefei wanted to express. It seemed to be implicit, but it was actually very straightforward. Either they could always see each other, or they would never see each other again. In the future, they would be on different sides of the world and would never have any interaction with each other. How could they always see each other? The answer was naturally self-evident. If they couldn't do this, once Ning Xuefei married someone else's wife, then the birthday party just now would be their final farewell. Holding the thin letter in his hand and looking at the delicate handwriting on it, Lin Yi was stunned. Before this, he had never thought that Ning Xuefei would be such a strong woman. Either they would stay together forever, or they would be on different sides of the world. There was no room for compromise between the two. Chapter 46-53. Alright, quiet down. Our mission is complete. Let little junior brother have some peace and quiet. Shanghai Laner looked at Lin Yi's calm expression and smiled slightly. She believed that Lin Yi would not let her down, nor would he let Ning Xuefei down. Absolutely not. Ah. Lon, you want me to stay with him? Han Jingjing looked at Shanghai Laner blankly, and then looked at Lin Yi. Suddenly, there was a trace of shyness on her face. Puff! Shanghai Laner was stunned for a moment, and then she burst into laughter when she realized it. Even Lin Yi was amused. Han Jingjing's IQ was unquestionable. She was definitely a real monster, but it was limited to various kinds of research. At other times, she would be silly from time to time, just like now. After being laughed at by Lin Yi and Sheng Wanlan for a long time, Han Jingjing finally reacted. Her face flushed red, and even her neck turned red. She lowered her head as much as she could. If there was a crack in the ground, this girl might really be able to squeeze her head into it. In the end, Han Jingjing was dragged away by Shanghai Laner, who laughed so hard that she was out of breath. Lin Yi was left alone in the room again. Holding Ning Xuefei's letter in his hand, he secretly made up his mind and no longer hesitated. Ning Xuefei was a princess of an island, and she could write such a letter. If Lin Yi still didn't understand her intention, he should be struck by lightning. This time, he couldn't let her down no matter what. After eliminating the hesitation in his heart, Lin Yi suddenly became refreshed again. He knew that this time, the trial of the West Island gathered masters from all walks of life, and the process would certainly not be so smooth. It was inevitable that there would be danger everywhere. However, since his debut in the secular world, Lin Yi had never been afraid of anything. He had even broken through the Dragon's Pool and Tiger's Den in the South Island unscathed. Would he be afraid of this trifling trial of the West Island? Casting aside all distracting thoughts, Lin Yi was about to adjust his state and start cultivating. At this time, a familiar aura suddenly appeared outside the door. Lin Yi was immediately delighted. Qi Wenhan had arrived. Brother Qi. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Lin Yi hurriedly stepped forward to open the door and warmly welcomed her in. This was the promise he made with Qi Wenhan with his eyes at the banquet before. It was rare for his old friend to meet in this place in West Island. Naturally, they should have a good gathering. I'm sorry, I haven't completely settled down on my side, so I was delayed. I've made you wait for a long time, Brother Ling. Chi Wenhan smiled apologetically, and after sizing up Lin Yi for a while, he suddenly stepped forward and gave Lin Yi a bear hug. Brother Ling, you really are a good person. Those bastards of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency even dared to say that you died in the South Island. I knew they were bullshitting. Chi Wenhan had known Lin Yi's real name for a long time, but he was used to calling him Brother Ling, so he didn't bother to change it back. Ling Wen and Lin Yi were similar anyway. It's a long story, but I won't die so easily. Lin Yi smiled and led Chi Wenhan into the room, pouring a cup of spiritual tea for him personally. Then he asked, by the way, Brother Chi, why are you here? Is it possible that the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency has a good relationship with West Island? How is it possible? West Island is a giant that dominates Heaven Stage Island, and we are just a small escort agency. If it weren't for you, they wouldn't even have heard of us, so how could we have any relationship? Chi Wenhan laughed at himself, and glanced at the letter on the table out of the corner of his eye. He couldn't help but feel a little strange, but he didn't pay much attention to it. Hearing this, Lin Yi smiled. Chi Wenhan wasn't belittling himself. Before him, the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency was only a little famous in the Wayark Sea, and it might not even be well known in other seas of the Southland. Not to mention West Island, which was thousands of miles away and had nothing to do with each other. This time, I'm here in the name of the Southland Escort Agency Alliance. Taking advantage of this rare opportunity, my father asked me to come out and see the world. If there's a chance, I'll make some useful connections. This is the benefit of being the overlord of the Southland Escort Agency, because I can represent the whole sea of the Southland. Otherwise, if it's only under the name of our Equal of Heaven Escort Agency, people won't even look at us, and maybe we can't even enter the door, Chi Wenhan said with a bitter smile. One step at a time. The Equal of Heaven Escort Agency being able to walk out of the sea of the Southland is already a gratifying progress, at least it shows that it's a whole level higher than before. Lin Yi smiled and analyzed, what's more, the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency is now the overlord of the Southland Escort Agency. Any big force that wants a share of the sea of the Southland can't avoid you in the end. As long as there are benefits, there will be connections. This is the perfect strategic period for the escort agency to go further. Don't say you, it's us, okay? Don't forget, Brother Ling, you also have shares. Chi Wenhan said seriously. Okay, it's us. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh, and continued to ask, so, Brother Chi, you came all the way to West Island this time to attend the birthday party and expand your connections? Not really, these are just incidental things. I actually came here with a heavy responsibility, Chi Wenhan said, shaking his head. Heavy responsibility. Lin Yi was stunned. Yes, you saw what happened at the birthday party, right? My father specially sent me here this time for this princess of West Island. She will definitely choose a husband for her coming-of-age ceremony at the age of 18, and he asked me to find a way to fight for it. Although the chances are not big, if I succeed, we will have a giant like West Island as our backer, and then our Equal of Heaven Escort Agency will be invincible, Chi Wenhan said. Hearing this, Lin Yi's expression suddenly became a little strange. He had guessed that there must be a lot of competitors this time, but he never thought that even Chi Wenhan would be one. This really made him speechless. What's wrong? Chi Wenhan noticed Lin Yi's expression, and suddenly said in a daze, Brother Ling, are you the same? Oh, by the way, Brother Ling, you are the special envoy of North Island. I heard that North Island and West Island have always been on good terms, so it's normal for you to have this kind of mission. Lin Yi didn't know what to say for a moment, and his eyes unnaturally swept over the letter on the table. He couldn't say that he and Ning Shuefei had been together for a long time, could he? Following Lin Yi's eyes, Qi Wenhan's eyes also fell on the letter. From the beginning, he had noticed that the letter was not completely folded, and it was easy to see the delicate girl's handwriting on it. In an instant, Qi Wenhan suddenly understood something in his heart. He looked at the letter in surprise, and turned to look at Lin Yi in disbelief, saying, "Brother Ling, are you and Ning Shuefei?" Lin Yi smiled bitterly and said nothing. Chapter 46-54. He patted Lin Yi's shoulder and said, "What's more, I'm not optimistic about this at all. I know my identity and strength best. Although the requirement to participate in the trial of West Island is that the strength requirement cannot exceed the Yuanying realm, but this time, I, who am at the peak of Gold Core realm, am at the bottom." This was true. If only the local disciples of West Island participated in the trial in the past, Qi Wenhan, who was at the peak of Gold Core realm, was definitely not weak. But this time it was different. The people who participated in the trial were the elites of each island. Those who had the ambition and courage to target Ning Shuefei, the princess of West Island, were not easy to deal with. Most of their strength should be at the Yuanying realm, not lower than this. Otherwise, it was unknown whether they could survive to the end of the trial, let alone reach the sky in a single bound. And there is another more important reason why I don't want to participate in the competition. A strange light suddenly bloomed in Qi Wenhan's eyes. This man, who had always been cheerful and calm, blushed for the first time at this moment, which was really surprising. "Brother Qi, you..." Lin Yi's heart moved. He was no stranger to this kind of burning eyes, because most people had this stage. "Yes, I have someone I like." Qi Wenhan scratched his head in embarrassment and confessed to Lin Yi. "Oh. When did it happen?" When Lin Yi heard this, he suddenly became interested. When he left South Continent, there was no news at all. With Qi Wenhan's free and easy style, he should not hide this kind of thing so deeply. "Not long ago, I fell in love with her at first sight." But Qi Wenhan suddenly looked gloomy and said with some disappointment, "She is a master of the Yuanying realm, but I am only at the peak of Gold Core realm, alas." Seeing Qi Wenhan sigh, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel happy and said with a smile, "So what if your strength is not as high as the other parties? The key is whether she has feelings for you or not. You are so worried about gains and losses. This isn't like Brother Qi's style." Qi Wenhan couldn't help but blush at Lin Yi's words. He awkwardly said, "I also know that I can't be so worried about personal gains and losses. As a man, when it's time to fight for something, I absolutely can't shrink back and admit defeat. I understand these principles, but I just can't control my own brain." He couldn't help but think in this direction. After all, she's not an ordinary cultivator, but the daughter of the owner of the treasure ship transportation company in the South Continent. The daughter of the ship king. Lin Yi was stunned when he heard this. When he was in the South Continent, he had heard someone mention this treasure ship transportation company by chance. If it was just an ordinary transportation company, Qi Wenhan, as the young master of the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, would definitely not feel inferior. However, the other party was a treasure ship transportation company, and the meaning behind it was completely different. In this Heaven Stage Island, a strategic existence like a treasure ship had always been owned by those top forces. This principle was also true in reverse. A force that could own a treasure ship was definitely a tyrant that could not be underestimated in the 5 great Heaven Stage Islands. It should be known that even the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, which had become the overlord of the escort agencies in the South Continent, was far from qualified and had a treasure ship. Chi Wen-han, as the young master of the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, was faced with a treasure ship transportation company with such a deep background. It was no wonder that he would be so worried about personal gains and losses and sigh in despair. His strength was not as high as the other parties, and his background was not as good as the other parties. If he rashly approached them, it would be very normal for others to say that he was overestimating his own capabilities. At that time, they might not even be friends anymore. The king of ships. You can say that. Chi Wen-han was stunned for a moment. Wasn't a treasure ship the king of ships? The treasure ship transportation company itself was the uncrowned king. So that's how it is. You don't need to sigh, I have a way. Lin Yi's heart moved slightly. He took out a small wooden box from his pocket and handed it to Chi Wen-han. You don't need to worry with this. What is it? Chi Wen-han curiously took the small wooden box. He discovered that although the box was ordinary, the cool aura coming from it made him feel refreshed. He hurriedly opened it and was immediately shocked. He was a person who knew what was good and what was bad. It was actually a condensed nascent golden pill. With your strength and foundation, it's actually time for you to break through. As long as you take this condensed nascent golden pill, it should be able to protect your nascent soul. Lin Yi smiled slightly. With Chi Wen-han's ability, as long as his strength could be on equal footing with the other party, he would definitely not feel inferior anymore. After all, if one were to really talk about it, although the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency could not compare to the treasure ship transportation company, it was definitely not too far off. No matter what, it was still the overlord of the escort agencies in the South Continent. This is too precious. Brother Ling, you should keep it for yourself. I'm not in a hurry. The condensed nascent golden pill was like a hot potato in Chi Wen-han's hands. He immediately became flustered and desperately stuffed it back to Lin Yi. You're not in a hurry. You're not in a hurry, but the lady is. Lin Yi glanced at him and angrily threw the small wooden box back to Chi Wen-han. He curled his lips and said, she's the daughter of a ship king. Who knows when she'll get married? At that time, you won't even have time to cry, and you're still not in a hurry. Don't blame me for not reminding you as a brother. Once you come across this kind of thing, you must grasp it tightly. Otherwise, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Chi Wen-han instantly fell into a dilemma after hearing Lin Yi's words. He naturally understood this principle. Moreover, according to his knowledge, there were many young masters who had designs on this sweetheart. If he acted too late, he might really regret it for the rest of his life. However, Chi Wen-han was very clear about the value of a condensed nascent golden pill. Especially since this was a high-quality condensed nascent golden pill, no matter how many spirit jades one had, one might not be able to buy it. Even if his relationship with Lin Yi was not too bad, he still did not dare to rashly accept such a valuable item. What are you still hesitating for? I've never seen you so wishy-washy before. With our friendship, could it be that you can't even accept a mere condensed nascent golden pill? Lin Yi pretended to be angry. Alright, since Brother Ling has put it this way, then I'll accept it. However, I'll say this first. You must accept the amount of spirit jades you paid for this condensed nascent golden pill. Otherwise, I won't be able to live with myself. Chi Wen-han nodded. Who told you that this condensed nascent golden pill was bought? Lin Yi looked at him strangely and smiled. Didn't I tell you before that I'm a real elixir refiner? I made these pills myself. Lin Yi looked at him strangely and smiled. Chapter 46-55. To be honest, if it wasn't for the sudden appearance of the West Mountain Elder, I was planning on making a batch of pills specifically for the escort agency. Unfortunately, Things happened so suddenly that I had no other choice. This time, I can help you make up for it, so don't dawdle. This gathering infant golden pill was originally prepared for you, so quickly accept it, Lin Yi said with a smile. Qi Wenhan did not have much else to say, so he nodded and said, if that's the case, then I won't stand on ceremony with you, Brother Ling, you should have done this a long time ago. Lin Yi smiled. In his eyes, Qi Wenhan, senior brother Ku Bai, and the others were all on his side. He was never stingy with his own people, and if the gathering infant golden pill could help him achieve good things, that would be for the best. Speaking of which, I am ashamed. Ever since we met, Brother Ling has always been the one who has helped me. Even if I sell my life to you, it won't be enough. It looks like I can only work like a horse for you, Qi Wenhan said half-jokingly. Why are you working like a horse for me instead of being the young master of an escort agency? Brother Qi, don't forget that I own 30% of the agency's shares. Helping you is helping myself. This is called a long-term investment, not a favor. Lin Yi laughed disapprovingly. Hee, if all the businessmen in the world were to invest like you, Brother Ling, they would probably be starving, unable to recoup their investment for the rest of their lives. Qi Wenhan smiled and shook his head, then looked at the gathering infant golden pill in his hand and said excitedly, to be honest, Brother Ling, this gathering infant golden pill of yours is really timely. My father and I have been asking around for the gathering infant golden pill for half a year. Unfortunately, there is no stock in the South Continent. You have solved my urgent problem. Alright, hurry up and condense your nascent soul, then get the daughter of the ship king. I am waiting to attend your wedding, Lin Yi said with a smile. Don't worry, Brother Ling, what you said just now has enlightened me. Since I have met her, I must hold on to her tightly. I will not let myself regret it for the rest of my life. Qi Wenhan's eyes suddenly became passionate again. Compared to before, he was obviously more determined. This is the Brother Qi I know. Lin Yi nodded his head in appreciation. He chuckled and said, don't forget to send me an invitation when the time comes. No matter how far it is, I will still rush over. I really want to see how beautiful the daughter of a shipping king is to be able to charm you. This. Qi Wenhan lowered his head and rubbed his hands together, saying somewhat embarrassedly, actually, she has also come this time. You'll be able to see him in 2 days. What? I don't see anything. Was he sitting with you just now? Lin Yi blinked. Previously, he had only been paying attention to Qi Wenhan and hadn't paid attention to the people around him. Well, the main reason I came here this time is to have more opportunities to get in touch with her. She has mixed in with the Southern Continent's diplomatic corps, but this is a secret visit. Very few people know her identity. Qi Wenhan smiled bitterly. Oh. Then I really have to find a chance to get to know her. Lin Yi laughed and looked at Qi Wenhan's embarrassed look. He said playfully, so, Brother Qi, you're quite close to her. You've even gotten together. Not bad, not bad. Brother Ling, you've misunderstood. I haven't even gotten close to her yet. The main reason we're together this time is because the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency is cooperating with her family's treasure ship transportation company. Qi Wenhan suddenly blushed again. What kind of cooperation? Lin Yi asked in surprise. This time for the birthday party, the Southern Continent Escort Agency Alliance has a large batch of goods to be delivered to the West Island. This used to be the business of the Four Seas Escort Agency, but now it has fallen into the hands of the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency. Not only the West Island, but also the long-distance escort business related to other Heaven Stage Islands. From now on, the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency will be responsible for it, Qi Wenhan explained. This is not bad. We can take over these businesses. The escort agency will definitely be reborn. Lin Yi's eyes lit up as he said this. The escort agencies that were limited to the waters of the southern continent and the escort agencies that were spread across the 5 Heaven Stage Islands were on 2 completely different levels. Once the Equal of Heaven escort agency could successfully take over these long-distance voyages, its strength would definitely improve by leaps and bounds. The other escort agencies that were limited to the waters of the southern continent would definitely not be able to compete with them. Yes, my father and I both feel that these businesses are of the utmost importance, and we definitely can't make any mistakes. However, we don't have a treasure ship of our own, and it's impossible for us to travel so far by relying on a normal ship. That's why we decided to cooperate with the treasure ship transportation company. It's also because of this that I met her. A silly smile suddenly appeared on Chi Wenhan's face. Lin Yi couldn't help but chuckle. The Chi Wenhan of the past wasn't exactly a playboy, but he'd definitely been an elegant young master. Now, he'd turned into a silly, infatuated man because of a woman. The word love was truly mysterious. That's enough. Brother Chi, you can stop being so infatuated. I'm getting goosebumps. Lin Yi shook his head speechlessly. Same here. Brother Ling, aren't you also entangled in love? We're truly brothers, Chi Wenhan said with a laugh. I'm not as infatuated as you are. Lin Yi pursed his lips and asked, by the way, what's the situation in the southern continent recently? Has the Spirit Beast clan made any moves? They've already begun to take action. The waters and city docks closest to the southern island have already been taken over by the experts of the Spirit Beast clan. Although they've only said that they're maintaining order and haven't directly started collecting fees, everyone knows that it's only a matter of time. Speaking of this, Chi Wenhan's expression suddenly became serious. As expected, they can't hold back anymore. Lin Yi nodded. To be honest, the fact that the Spirit Beast clan had taken so long to take action was already very unexpected. With the Vermilion Bird's wild ambition, it was inevitable that they would encroach on the waters of the southern continent. No one could stop them unless they started a war with the Spirit Beast clan. This is all thanks to Brother Ling's reminder. Otherwise, our Heaven's Equal escort agency would have suffered a great loss. Do you know that the Divine Wind escort agency has already fallen apart? Just because one of their fleets refused to be disciplined, they were killed on the spot by the experts of the Spirit Beast clan. After that, every time the Divine Wind escort agency escorted a convoy, their ships would be destroyed and their people would die. Now, we can't hold on any longer. This is the consequence of provoking the Spirit Beast clan. If we hadn't made preparations in advance, I'm afraid that the Heaven's Equal escort agency would have been the ones targeted, Chi Wenhan said with lingering fear. Chapter 46-56. Holy Wind Escort Agency's foundation was much deeper than that of Heaven's Equal escort agency. He didn't expect to be the first unlucky one. He couldn't help but ask, since the Spirit Beast clan has taken action, what's the reaction of the surrounding forces? They're angry, but they don't dare to say anything. At least as far as the sea area of South State is concerned, all of them are not enough to satisfy the Spirit Beast clan. Of course, they don't even dare to fart. Chi Wenhan smiled bitterly and said after a pause, it's okay now, but I'm afraid that the Spirit Beast clan will become more aggressive in the future. So, I actually have another mission this time, which is to communicate with the higher-ups of West Island and see what West Island's attitude is about this. After that, other forces will try their best to get in touch with them. If human forces can unite to contain the Spirit Beast clan together, it will be great. The image of Azure Dragon flashed through Lin Yi's mind, especially the attitude he showed during the birthday banquet and the words he said to him. He'd been confused before, but now he understood a little. Azure Dragon's intentions were probably the same as Chi Wenhan's. They were both here for the same thing, it was just that they were on different sides. The Spirit Beast clan was originally isolated from the world. Now it took the first step under the command of Vermilion Bird, but Vermilion Bird wasn't stupid enough to think that he could be the enemy of the whole world. Every time the Spirit Beast clan took a step forward, they had to carefully observe the reaction of human forces. If they were besieged by human forces before they had enough strength, even the Spirit Beast clan couldn't afford it. In this case, the new Azure Dragon promoted by Vermilion Bird became the best choice to deal with human forces. This time he came to West Island to attend the birthday party. He didn't just want to be friendly, but also had the same idea as Chi Wenhan. He wanted to take the opportunity to find out the views of the higher-ups of West Island on the situation of South State. Not only West Island, but also the other Heaven Stage Islands, including North Island, were also the people Azure Dragon had to deal with. Thinking of this, Lin Yi couldn't help but smile. No wonder Azure Dragon talked to him specially. However, Lin Yi still ignored one thing. Azure Dragon did shoulder the mission of dealing with human forces, and he did plan to find a chance to visit the North Island. But this couldn't be a reason for Azure Dragon to talk to him, at least this reason was far from sufficient. No matter what, Lin Yi was just a special envoy from the North Island. In terms of level, he was far from being comparable to the Azure Dragon, a top-notch elder of the Spirit Beast clan. If the Azure Dragon really wanted to visit the North Island, why would he look for him? Wouldn't it be better to find Lan Tifu? North Island, West Island, and Nanzhou. Even Zhongdao was included. Even Lin Yi himself didn't realize that he had a lot of intersection with these places. Although he was a small figure, if he really played a role, he would be a key fulcrum that could leverage the entire South Continent. The Azure Dragon saw this, which was why the scene at the birthday banquet happened. Otherwise, a mere Lin Yi would not even be qualified to enter his eyes, let alone take the initiative to talk to him. The Spirit Beast clan is such a behemoth that the forces in the South Continent Sea can't contend with. To be honest, the final outcome of the South Continent Sea has nothing to do with the local forces. It depends on whether the Spirit Beast clan and the human forces in the other Heaven Stage Islands will eventually reach some kind of tacit understanding or compromise. The key depends on the attitude of these big shots, Lin Yi said thoughtfully. Yes, I think so too. That's why I have to find a way to contact the higher-ups of these islands. I don't expect any kind of help from them. At least I have to find out their attitude first, so that I can always be prepared in advance. Chi Wenhan nodded. Yes. That's all I can do for the time being. If there are any changes in the future, remember to inform me at any time. I don't dare to say anything else, but I have some connections in the Heaven Stage Islands. Maybe they can help, Lin Yi said after thinking for a while. Okay, I'll keep it in mind. Chi Wenhan said with great joy. After these words, the two talked for a while. They didn't talk too late. At this time, Chi Wenhan took the gathering nascent soul golden elixir and couldn't wait to go back and prepare for the breakthrough. As for Lin Yi, he also needed to adjust his state, consolidate his strength, and prepare for the upcoming West Island trial test. Ning Xuefei's short letter had completely dispelled the doubts in Lin Yi's heart. This time, the West Island trial test was related to Ning Xuefei's lifelong happiness, so there was absolutely no room for failure. Although time was tight and there were only 2 days left, Lin Yi still decided to have a good closed-door training. He didn't expect to have any amazing breakthrough, but at least he wanted to control his strength more skillfully. Lin Yi had a vague hunch that this time, the West Island trial test would not be so easy, and he was afraid that there would be a fierce battle. While Lin Yi was in closed-door training, on the other side, Su Lingchong and Kong Mingming, who also lived in the emissary's mansion, unexpectedly had an uninvited guest. A middle-aged man with a white face and no beard knocked on their door. At first glance, this man looked sloppy and ordinary, and he was the kind of person who would never be found in a crowd of people. If one had to say what characteristics he had, it could only be said that this man's eyes were small and focused, which made people know at first glance that he was a shrewd businessman. "I'm Dong Fongwa, the shopkeeper of the West Island branch of the Central Chamber of Commerce." "Nice to meet you, Special Envoy Su." As soon as this man saw Su Lingchong, he gave him a big salute, which was the standard etiquette for superiors and subordinates, and his posture was extremely low. "Okay, come in." Su Lingchong and Kong Mingming looked at each other, and then they invited him into the room. Most people in the Central Chamber of Commerce didn't know the existence of the Central Chamber of Commerce, but at the level of the shopkeeper of the branch, he must be an internal member of the Central, just like Si Haishao in the North Island. "What can I do for you?" Su Lingchong continued to look at Dong Fongwa, who came uninvited. He didn't receive any order or news in advance, so he was a little confused about the visit of the shopkeeper of the West Island branch. Did he simply come to pay his respects after hearing the news? This was not impossible. Although the position of the shopkeeper of the branch seemed to be glorious, his status in the Central was far less than that of Su Lingchong, the special emissary of the North Island. It was normal for him to find an opportunity to show his goodwill. "Special Emissary Su, I received a secret order from the top yesterday, asking me to cooperate with you and be your logistical support," Dong Fongwa said respectfully. "Logistical support." Su Lingchong and Kong Mingming's eyes lit up at the same time, and then they asked, "What can you support? Elixirs or magic weapons?" You two must be joking." Although our Central Chamber of Commerce is also involved in these things, they are not our main products, and they may not be effective in a short time. Dong Fongguo paused and said with a mysterious smile, "What I brought this time are specially supplied high-tech materials, which should be of some use." Chapter 46-57. "Oh. Take it out and have a look." Su Lingchong and Kong Mingming couldn't help but be interested. Dong Fongguo smiled slightly and clapped her hands gently. Two servants came in from outside the door. They were carrying a big box that was half the height of a person, and they seemed to be struggling. Kong Mingming couldn't wait to step forward and open the box. After seeing what was inside, he suddenly gasped, "Fuck. Isn't this a laser cannon? Oh my god, Long Di Dong, and an intelligent armor." These two things were extremely rare even in the secular world. Ordinary people simply couldn't get their hands on them, let alone on this heavenly island. The center was really awesome, they could even get their hands on these two things. These two things should be able to help you. I wish Brother Kong success in advance. Dong Fongguo smiled and complimented. Ha 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 ha, that's for sure. With this equipment, I don't need to be afraid. Kong Mingming couldn't help but be overjoyed. If he wasn't strong enough, he could make up for it with equipment. With the laser cannon and the intelligent armor, even if he faced Lin Yi head-on, he wouldn't be afraid. Seeing that Kong Mingming was so excited, Su Lingchong was puzzled. He looked up and down at the laser cannon and the intelligent armor, and said strangely, "What? Is this thing really that good?" As a member of the center, of course, he had seen many technological products in the secular world. However, the impression that those things gave him was nothing more than novelty. It was quite convenient to use, but it was absolutely nonsense to say that it was very powerful, especially these so-called high-tech weapons. In a word, they were flashy but impractical. It sounded awesome, but that was limited to ordinary people. It would be difficult to use it to deal with masters in the foundation establishment stage, let alone the nascent soul stage, which was far above the Foundation establishment stage. What could these two things do in the West Island trial test? Young Master Su, don't underestimate these high-tech weapons in the secular world, especially this laser cannon and intelligent armor. Their power and effect are absolutely unimaginable unless you see them with your own eyes. Kong Ming's eyes lit up as he looked at the two pieces of equipment. They were just delivered at this critical moment. They were simply tailor-made for him. It can't be an exaggeration, right? Su Lingchong was still skeptical. Young Master Su, you don't know. Don't look at how many people in the secular world say that the Great Circle of the Heaven rank is an atomic bomb. At most, its destructive power and deterrence were more shocking. This laser cannon is a rare high-tech weapon in the secular world. Its power is far beyond that of ordinary technological weapons. I don't think even a profound ascending stage master would be able to penetrate it, let alone a mere nascent soul stage Lin Yi. Kong Ming said confidently. Really? Su Lingchong's eyelids twitched. Even a profound ascending stage expert could be penetrated with one shot. Wouldn't that be a super killing weapon? If that was the case, then the value of this thing would be huge. The higher-ups really put in a lot of effort for this West Island trial. It's absolutely true. Young Master Su, don't be fooled by the fact that the most powerful technological weapon in the secular world is the atomic bomb. That thing is only powerful enough to kill ordinary people. Ordinary cultivators might not be able to withstand it, but if it's used against experts of the original infant stage, it's probably useless. But this laser cannon is different. Kong Ming licked his lips and said excitedly, the laser cannon is not a large-scale destructive weapon like the atomic bomb. Instead, it concentrates all its power in one place. The terrible penetration and lethality of that point-to-point is unimaginable. Nascent soul stage can't bear it, and profound ascending stage probably can't bear it either. I even suspect that no cultivator in the world can bear it. That's impossible. The real top masters are not what you can imagine at all. No matter how powerful a technological weapon is, it's just a pile of scrap iron in front of them. Otherwise, they would be invincible in the secular world. Su Lingchong curled his lips. He had never been interested in the so-called technology of the secular world. To be precise, he looked down on the secular world at all. Moreover, his understanding of masters was far from that of a low-level dabbler like Kong Ming. No matter how strong a cultivator was, he couldn't block this little laser cannon. Bullshit. Yes, young Master Su is right. But the lethality of the laser cannon really can't be underestimated. I can guarantee that it's no problem to deal with Lin Yi. Kong Ming smiled apologetically. Well, what you said is indeed a bit interesting, but what is the land atomic bomb? What is that? Su Lingchong suddenly asked. It's one of the most powerful technological weapons in the secular world. I can't explain it in a few words. To put it simply, if West Island is given a heavyweight atomic bomb, then West Island will probably disappear from the map of Heaven Stage Island. Kong Ming thought about it and explained. So awesome. Su Lingchong was shocked. He said in disbelief, West Island has all kinds of super protective formations. Once they are all activated, even the giants in the mountain opening period can't do anything about it. Are you kidding me? I'm just making an example. If West Island doesn't have a protective array, and all the people there are ordinary people, even if they don't sink, they will be useless from then on. That's why this thing has such a terrible deterrent power in the secular world, Kong Ming explained. Is that so? That's not simple. I didn't expect the secular world to be so capable. They can even create such a thing. Su Lingchong nodded. Haha, Brother Kong seems to know a lot about these things. This is an eye-opener for me, Dong Fanggua, who was beside him, said with a smile. Oh, he came from the secular world. It would be strange if he didn't know this. Su Lingchong curled his lips. Oh. No wonder Brother Kong is so familiar with laser cannons and intelligent armor. Then Brother Kong, you must know more than me. I won't introduce more, lest I show off in front of an expert. To be honest, I don't really understand this thing. Luckily, I met Brother Kong, such an understanding person. Dong Fangguo let out a sigh of relief. No problem. Don't I have an instruction manual? Anyway, there's still some time before the trial starts. I just need to study it a little. Leave it to me, aha. Kong Mingming smiled proudly, and then he couldn't wait to fiddle with it. This was his capital and reliance to deal with Lin Yi. This time, whether he could get Ning Shuefei or not, depended on whether this thing was powerful enough. 2 days passed in a flash. In these 2 days, although masters from various Heaven Stage Islands gathered in West Island, there weren't as many strange faces on the streets as expected. Because most people were adjusting their state, making the final preparations for the trial of West Island that was about to start, R1052. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.